What's up, everyone? Welcome to GameFace, episode 409. Wasn't that like a bathroom cleaner or something?
Yeah, Formula 409. Yeah.
Welcome to episode 409 of GameFace on Sifted Games at SIFTD.net, our flagship show. We're here every Tuesday on twitch.tv/Sifted Games to talk about awesome video games with you guys. And alongside me today to do that, as always, is Matt Keil. What's up, Matt?
Yeah, well, I'm apparently bathroom cleaners that no one's ever heard of.
I think that's part of our generation, 409. Yeah. I don't think it's been around for a really long time.
If it is, it had a different name.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that and the scrubbing bubbles. Or...
Right. I think Dow's still around, though.
Probably. Is that what that was?
Dow scrubbing bubbles, yeah. We work hard, so you don't have to.
Right.
Remember those commercials?
I feel like that was called something else on the West Coast. I don't know Dow.
It wasn't called that here?
No, I think it was something else here.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, where I grew up, that's what it was called.
But every once in a while, you run into those weird regional name differences.
Yeah, where they're just like, the branding doesn't work here or there. What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are having a good week. We are in the thralls of the game release schedule here at the end of 2024. Have a bunch more reviews for you today. We're going to talk about Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Which, wow, the reviews for that have been really high. I've been surprised by that. We'll talk about that, obviously. We're going to talk about the new Sonic game.
Not as high as Dragon Age.
Yeah. What is Dragon Age's aggregate right now?
It was like 93.
Is it?
It's crazy. It's the Game Awards going to have to make some room in that nomination list.
Seriously. And we'll be talking about, we're actually not reviewing Dragon Age in today's show.
Yeah, people keep comparing it to Mass Effect 2. I'm just like, oh, real? Oh, You want to set the bar that high?
Talking about a dog whistle.
You want to bring me in and really make me think? Okay.
And we're not reviewing Dragon Age: The Veilguard today. We'll be talking about it in next week's show. But like I said, we have Call of Duty, one of the other biggest releases for 2024. We're going to talk about it today on the show. A couple things before we get going. We are supported 100% at patreon.com/sifted. See that list down below that you're seeing scrolling right now? Those are the people who really hook it up. Those are the people who pledge at $30 or more per month. Honestly, they are really the lifeblood that keeps our Patreon going. But if you want to watch GameFace early, it only costs you $4 a month. Please go to patreon.com/sifted and hook us up with a pledge. If you can't do that, you can hook us up with Twitch Prime. If you're watching on YouTube, down below in the description, there's step-by-step instructions on how to do that. If you've already linked your account, it takes 3 seconds to give us $2.50 for free. Amazon gives it to us. They've taken your money, have Amazon give it to us instead of keeping your money. It's easy breezy. And if you don't have any money, you're not an Amazon Prime subscriber. You can like the show, comment on the show right now. Literally right now. If you're on YouTube, comment. It is making a huge difference in the views for our show. You guys just started doing it like a couple months ago, and our views are going up. It is making a difference. So right now, just take a second, just type in Awesome Podcast, submit, like the show, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, all that stupid crap that Matt, I have finally admitted, actually works.
Yeah.
I fought it all this time. It works. And I should have...
All you had to do all this time was have everybody comment Craymass under everything. And that you just bubble right up in that algorithm.
It's funny. It's making a difference is what I'm getting at. So thank you very much, guys. We appreciate that you're doing it. Please keep doing it. It helps us financially if you're doing Twitch Prime, if you're pledging, etc. But it also helps us if you're just liking the show or even reviewing the show on the podcast service that you're listening to the show on. That helps too. We appreciate all of it. We do have a big show today. A couple things before we go on. You do anything for Halloween, Matt?
No.
No? When was the last time you went out for Halloween and had fun?
I mean, I go to Halloween parties and stuff. They just don't happen on Halloween because we're all adults.
Yeah, like this past weekend.
I went to stuff this weekend.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did you dress up?
Yeah.
What'd you dress up as?
I was Quint from Jaws.
That's a good one. That's a really good one, actually. Yeah. I'm guessing in the circles that you were in, probably it was a big hit.
Everybody knew, yeah.
Yeah.
Like one person who was there, their parents were there, and that was apparently the movie they saw all the time when they first started dating. And so they're like, oh, Quint. I'm just like, oh, this is what it's like to be a Disney character. Cool.
I have not dressed up for Halloween at this point, and
I almost put on my
8 years
my
probably.
Ezio outfit for this, but I'm lazy.
Yeah.
Then, if it was actually Halloween, I'd do that.
Well, then you're going to be like uncomfortable the whole night, maybe hot, like.
Well, that's for the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gonna keep it on after you leave. That'll be very weird.
I haven't dressed up for Halloween in like 8 years. As you get older, you don't really get invited. I don't get invited to Halloween parties anymore. Like all the people I used to go to Halloween parties with, I don't really talk to them anymore. They moved away or whatever. Like
I still have people that do, like, there's two groups of people that still do Halloween parties every year.
I used to love it. Yeah. My wife and I, we used to get dressed up and go out to, like, house parties with DJs and stuff, and everybody there on the dance floor would be dressed up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm
awesome.
from San Francisco. We used to go to the Castro
Yeah.
Halloween
Oh.
party, which was
Good stuff.
You know, basically maybe the best in the early to mid 90s, maybe the best Halloween party
ever
in the world.
Seriously.
Like, really unbelievable.
It was really great. Yep. So anyway, Halloween's coming up, or if you guys already celebrated Halloween, hope you guys had fun. Another thing, the election is in a week here in America. You know, we try not to get too political here on GameFace. I'm just going to let you know right now that I am endorsing Kamala Harris. To me, there is no question. I want to be able to vote again and have my vote actually matter. I'm voting for Kamala Harris. I'm voting for democracy. And I'm going to leave it at that.
I'm pretty sure everybody knows.
I'm pretty sure you guys understand who Matt is going to endorse as well. And we don't normally do this. I feel like this is a very particular time in American history. And I normally wouldn't do this, but if I can convince one person in America to vote for Kamala Harris, I will take the heat for saying this on my show. I don't care. There's nothing more important to me than being able to have my vote counted for the rest of my life. And if you don't think that that's in danger right now, you need to look into stuff a lot more closely. And that's all I'm
Put
gonna
it this
say.
way. The new Indiana Jones game has to have a disclaimer on it saying that Nazis are bad.
That's where we're at, people.
That's where we are.
That is where we are. So I hope that some people out there will take a stand against this nonsense. And honestly, Matt, let's just turn the page. There's no way there's anyone out there who is not sick of this psycho thing we've been living in for the last 8 years. It is psycho, Matt, what is happening in our country. We need to turn the page and move on.
There's young people who have never known a presidential election that wasn't complete madness.
It's insane. It is insane. Let's turn the page.
I cannot emphasize to you how normal the 2012 election felt compared to any
Let's
of this.
go back to the time where we could go to Thanksgiving dinner and not get in arguments with people. That never happened before 2016.
Nah, it happened.
It didn't.
Not about that.
But but over politics, and it's just like let's go back, people. Let's go back to civility, to normalcy, to democracy. Let's make it happen. We're 1 week out, and I think that's it for housekeeping.
Well, again, see, this is one of our fundamental. We're not 1 week out.
It may take.
We're not going to know that night. He's going to try every underhanded bullshit thing.
Yeah.
They're setting voting drop boxes on fire.
Yeah.
They're stealing keys from post offices. It's all going to get real fucking weird and real fucking desperate.
Just go vote.
And
that's all you got to do.
I'm not going to be comfortable until she is sitting in that Oval Office on January 20th.
Yeah.
And
I think I'm not so worried.
Like
about
I'm going to sit there glued to the fucking TV as they drive from the inauguration. Like just fucking the pedal on the right. Just go. Just get her there. Just go.
And here's the thing: just vote. Like, I know that the more people vote, that we're going to be okay. Because I believe that Americans are good people. And I think there's more good people than bad people. And if we all vote, the good people win. And so I'm just going to tell you to vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, even though I endorse Kamala. I'm just going to tell you to vote. Because if you vote and everybody votes, then the right person will win. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And yeah, we're going to be doing the show next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Should we postpone it for Wednesday?
No,
It's better on Tuesday.
You might as well. The band played on the Titanic. We should keep it going as the Republic falls or doesn't. You know. All
right, so we'll be here on Tuesday. We're about ready to get into the show. We have a lot of headlines today, as well as a lot of games to review. But before we do that, we want to check in with you guys to see what you guys are saying. Mighty Pony Girl, you doing an Election Day episode? We are. Yep, we're going to do the show. And we'll be reviewing Dragon Age the Veilguard on Election Day. Oh, yeah, Mitchell Ness is bringing up, you guys squeak in Firewalk's closure. So we did add that to the end of our headlines, but we can just mention it now.
Yeah.
As we were about to do the show, it was announced that the developer of Concord was, in fact, shut down by PlayStation. We talked last week how there was a glimmer of hope that the game might come back because there was some weird stuff going on Steam. As it turns out, that was nothing, and the studio has been closed.
That might have literally just been stripping everyone of their access, as far as we know.
You're maybe right, actually. They may have just closed out the accounts there, and that's all it was.
And they also shut down a developer called Neon Koi in Germany.
Yeah, which is like a mobile...
part of their mobile thrust, but they never actually made anything. They were working on some... AAA live service. AAA live service, as Sterling would say.
Yep.
So they're shutting stuff down, writing some things down.
Yep.
And seemed like a pretty concrete number that Concord cost $200 million. not including marketing, distribution, or purchasing the studio. So total, you're probably looking at almost $500 million spent on that game.
Just
in the end.
flush down the toilet, people. Imagine what we could do with that money.
Yeah,
amazing things. But that's business. That's how it goes in America. Lots of money wasted over stupid crap, unfortunately. But anyway, Concord is now gone for good. It's not going to come back as a free-to-play shooter. It's gone. The studio is gone. I do hope, Matt, that those talented people end up getting dispersed out into...
There's a lot of people and not a lot of jobs right now.
But they are really scaled.
Oh, that was an all-star team they had.
Now, you can see it. Like, it's just it wasn't the right idea at the right time. It wasn't the quality of the game
necessarily. Well, it was, but then 8 years later...
it took too long to make.
Yeah. The initial idea at the time was pretty great.
Yeah. So anyway, Don Lionheart, thank you for Twitch Prime. Jewelt31, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. AmoClip20, thank you. Subscribing at Tier 1 for 24 months. That's awesome. We got anything else up in here? Ham X Hops, thank you for Twitch Prime. Khalib Twalai, thank you. Toast9, thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Rock and Roll 458, thank you. Metal Gear Jimmy, thank you. Too Quick Capri, thank you. All you guys on big streaks there. That's awesome. And I think that's it. Again, we're at the end of the month. I'm surprised we have this many Twitch Prime subscribers here in the show towards the end.
You're in a hype chest. What's a hype chest?
What is that? Let me open it. Actually, let me bring it up so you guys can see it too. We just got something weird in our chat called a hype chest. I've never seen that before. But we're going to open it. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's like a loot box. Hello there, emote.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll share that so you guys can use it now.
Choo-choo.
All right.
Choo-choo, motherfuckers.
You just demonetized us, Matt, by using the F word in the first 15 minutes.
Bring it.
That's what YouTube says. I don't know if any of that's really true.
Do you need to hit return on that? Do you need to...
I'm at the bottom.
Only you can use it.
I'm at the bottom. Yeah, I'm at the bottom.
Yeah, but you'd have to... I think you have to press return on your chat.
Oh, just send out the choo-choo. I see. Out she goes. I got to use it once at least. Oh, only I can use it. I see. Okay, got it. All right. You ready, Matt, to get on with the headlines?
Choo-choo, motherfucker.
Yep, we got a bunch of headlines today, and we actually have a really tight show, so we do need to get going. Our first headline we're going to talk about is...
They ever made a stuffed you? That's one of the things it would say when you pull the string. We have a really tight show. We got to get going. I don't think we're going to make it to 3 hours today.
That's the only 3 lines that my stuffed animal needs.
Yeah. And up and out.
That's the other way. So we've been talking a lot over the last year and a half about what's going on with Microsoft. You know, they bought all these studios. We thought they were going to have the best exclusive lineup of games ever. When the rubber hit the road, Microsoft was not so fast. We're going to start putting these games out on other platforms. People freaked out. And as it turns out, this week, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said, and I will quote this, says that Xbox is committed to selling games on as many platforms as possible. And and then the very next day, he got a $30 million raise.
Wow.
After laying off thousands.
SIFTD is committed to selling games on as many platforms as possible. Let's see.
And then he gave himself a $30 million a year raise after he just laid off thousands and thousands of video game developers under his purview. What do you think this... So, up until this point, Phil Spencer has been the one sort of dispensing this information. Now we get something from Microsoft CEO saying,
Maybe you'll believe it if I say it, kind of thing.
I mean, do you think that's what it is?
No, I don't know. I mean, this seems like a pretty... I mean, I guess you got to state the obvious every once in a while, but it's international mega corporation says money is good no matter where it comes from. No shit. They've clearly not been committed to the idea of Xbox being a success on its own closed platform for a very long time.
I mean, does it feel to you like this is Nadella giving up on Xbox consoles, hardware?
No, I mean, I'm sure they'll still make those, but it's just part of their strategy, not their entire strategy.
Yeah.
And, what else can they do? It can't be their entire strategy because they're never going to dominate that again. Sure. It's just Xbox is a brand now.
It feels like it's just like any other publisher. It's it's almost not like a platform holder anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a platform But you don't, even if it didn't put stuff on Nintendo or Sony platforms, you still don't need that. You have a PC. Like, it's just weird. It's just a weird situation they're in because they can't abandon Windows because that's their thing.
Yeah.
So, what do you know?
I think the answer is just putting out shuttle PCs that have Xbox branding on them.
Maybe.
And maybe putting like a truncated version of Microsoft Office on there so you can use it for some stuff as like an industrial application type machine, but also be able to play all Xbox stuff on it. Like, I feel like that's the future of Xbox if they're going to do hardware going forward. It feels silly at this point, Matt, to create this proprietary console.
Well, especially when you've proven to be so bad at the OS the last few times.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, well...
And PC gaming's like exploding. Imagine if you unified all the games that are on PC with your console, which they're kind of doing already, honestly.
I mean, there's a non-zero chance, I guess, that what they put out next will be kind of like a Steam Deck Switch hybrid. Like, just
that's what it feels like it might be, because we've also heard rumors about an Xbox handheld in the works, and...
Like, I don't think that'll work either, but it's at least... It feels like a poke in a different direction that might have some traction.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're competing with Sony anymore. Like, the head start's just too crazy, and I just don't see where... I don't see where that changes with the PS6.
Yeah.
You know, whenever that happens.
I'll say this, I
don't see an opening for them.
I don't either. I was at a game store about a week ago, and I was talking to the clerk, and I just asked him, I was like, hey, like, how many... like copies of like Xbox Series games do you sell compared to like PS5? And I'm like, obviously it's anecdotal just from you sitting at the cash register just figuring it out on your own. And he's like, I don't know, probably 7 to 3 or 6 to 4, something like that. And I was like blown away. I'm like, really? You're selling like 3 Xbox Series X copies of a game for every 7 PS5? And he's like, yeah. He's like, there's Xbox fans.
Yeah.
He's like, you would be shocked that there are people that are still ride with Xbox after all this time. And so I feel like I've almost like written off a lot of this stuff, and I feel like there's not a lot of emotional attachment to it, but there is still.
Well, that's
for a lot
the
of
thing
people.
is, like, if you look at Xbox's numbers in isolation, they're fine. They're still making money. They're doing millions.
Oh, yeah, they're turning huge profits, but it's mostly...
they're just not beating Sony. You know, Sony just it's that infinite growth thing. It's like Sony shows you could be making way more, but it's like, but you're just not. Like, some, different approaches to the business have different ceilings, and Xbox seems to have found it. It's theirs.
Well, it's making its money on the new model, though. It's not making it on the traditional Razer and Razer Blade model like Sony still is. It's making a lot of its money from Game Pass at this point. So,
well, it's going very digital, and again, it makes sense that a company with that many roots in the PC world would embrace that first.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that many physical copies are still being sold.
Yeah, I was shocked. And again, this is anecdotal. This was one store clerk I talked to at a video game store, and that was his best guess. But I was surprised it wasn't like none or like 1 to like 9, like 10%.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me too, especially given it's a GameStop and people who go to GameStop are probably the last shreds of physical media devotees. You know,
that's true.
I went to go look for copies of Astrobot when that came out to get for gifts, and like, they were gone. Like, not even just that they were gone because it wasn't that popular.
Yep.
And it were gone because no one orders any copies of anything anymore.
Physical copies are hard to get.
You know how many copies of Astrobot the Best Buy up in Hollywood got?
5.
Yes, correct. 5
See,
copies.
I have to buy games pretty regularly still. If I don't get something from a publisher, I need to go hunt it down. And I always buy physical because I'm like, well, if I buy it and I don't want to keep it, I can still get $40 or $50 back for the game. So it's not as big an expense. So I try to get physical if I can. If I don't, I just get digital. But like, I'll go on a hunt. I'll go to like my local Best Buys. I'll go to my local Targets. And like Astrobot, I did not get from PlayStation, and I had to find it. I went to Best Buy. They told me they got 5 copies, and I got like the 5th one or whatever. Like, it's like that everywhere. Like, a lot of times you go to retail, they don't even know if a game has a physical release anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's completely different.
That happened with, what was it? I can't remember where. I was at Target or somewhere.
This happens to me a lot at Target.
It was Alan Wake 2. Because Alan Wake 2 had come out that week, and I was somewhere, and someone in front of me at the counter was asking for it, and the clerk was like, oh, I don't know if we haven't seen it. And I had to say, like, there is no physical copy of Alan Wake 2.
Yep.
Like, they didn't make one.
Target never knows. I go there, and they have no clue.
I don't remember. It was somewhere. I don't remember.
GameStop's a little better about it because they are a game-centric retailer. But if you go to Target, the people that are working there, they just work in the electronics section. Like, they don't know jack about games. And that happens all the time. Like, people, it happened to me. Like 8 months ago, I saw someone trying to buy a game. And they're like, oh, da, da, da. And I didn't even know that there wasn't a physical version of it. I just stood there like an idiot. But this shows you how complicated it's becoming as to whether you can get physical games or not. So
yeah, the only reason I knew about Alan Wake 2 is because I think it had been an article, and I saw it.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I would not have known.
And you're in it. Like, you are hooked in. And even we don't know. So it is definitely confusing for consumers. There's no doubt about it. Let's see. Anything else you want to add to that?
I don't think so.
I was kind of surprised that Microsoft's CEO finally came out and said something. It wasn't just Phil Spencer this time. It felt like maybe I understood a little bit of what Phil's dealing with now. Because my guess is that Nadella is in Phil's ear saying, look, man, like, I know we made these big purchases. We need to start making money off of these purchases. This wasn't just like a charity case where we're hoping to like win. Like, we need to win. So I do wonder how much influence he now has over Phil Spencer and the Xbox brand, because he usually hardly says anything about it. So I thought that was a little bit of a shift and worth mentioning. Okay, next up. We've been wondering what Bungie's next game marathon is. We knew it was a shooter, but we didn't know what kind of shooter because they weren't telling us anything. And then yesterday, out of nowhere, they dropped this god-awful developer doc where it literally was like a dude, like a hostage video, where he's just sitting at his desk, like nothing was prepared. There was no B-roll. It was literally just him sitting at his desk talking, and then they showed 2 screenshots. And the good news is he did tell us ultimately what Marathon is. And Marathon is, in his words, an all-or-nothing class-based extraction shooter where you loot for weapons, equipment, and stats. And there's an expanded playtest coming in 2025. And that's it.
It's good to know I don't need to think about that game anymore.
Do you think it's going to get canceled before it comes out?
No, I just don't have any interest in playing that.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, I mean, most people know what an extraction shooter is, but not everybody. He felt like people didn't know, so he explained it. But basically, you go in, you play cooperatively with friends, or even competitively. You shoot stuff up, you collect loot, you collect weapons, you collect currency and things like that. But the thing is, you need to make it back to a drop point and extract with your stuff. And if you don't, he even said this in the developer doc, if you don't, someone else is taking your stuff. And then he went on to say, Matt, and this is very weird, that I realize this type of game isn't for everyone.
All right.
I can't believe that PlayStation looked at that and was like, okay, let's put this up. 1, the production values were awful. 2, he was not prepared. The statement was just like rambling. And 3, he tells people that some people are not going to like his game. Which is obvious.
Which is true of any game.
Right, but you just don't say it.
Yeah.
When you're trying to market your product. I think we all kind of had a hint that this is what Marathon was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just, it looks really cool visually. I just wish it was something else.
He showed 2 screenshots of classes from the game, and those screenshots did not look great. Mm-hmm. I mean, he even said in that developer doc, it's still really early and we're not comfortable showing it to anyone yet.
Yeah, there's a period where everyone thought this was like Q1 25.
Oh, yeah.
Which is clearly not
the
no. Case.
I mean, I'm starting to wonder if it's going to make it out next year at this point.
Yeah.
Because he didn't even say, like, we're going to do an open beta. He just said that we're going to have play tests, more play tests. So...
I mean, I don't care. It's like this thing can take forever if they want to.
Yeah. Because when it shows up, you're not going to want to play it anyway. No. Yeah.
I'm just going to look at it and be like, oh, it's a shame that something that looks that cool isn't something I want to play.
It is really cool art.
Yeah,
for sure.
I love the art.
I mean, there's nothing that looks like it, and that's hard to do in 2024 with video games at this point. So anyway, there you go. That's Marathon, and it is still coming to PS5, PC, and Xbox Series. He also mentioned that in the developer doc.
You should just go on Steam and get the original Marathons for free.
Yeah.
All 3 of them.
Are they free?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They're
they don't even try to sell them for $1 even.
No, they're all I mean, I think they're basically fan projects.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the originals are all up there, remade for free. They're still pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
If you're willing to read all the text.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, that was the thing. It's like when PC players were playing Doom, and we didn't even call them PC players at the time.
Yeah.
They were, Windows or IBM compatibles. And the Mac players were playing Marathon.
Yeah.
And it's a polar opposite approach to the first-person shooter of the time.
Cinetyke says, it's still really early, doesn't combine well with launching in 2025.
No.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's really true.
Kind of feels like when Microsoft was talking about Fable 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway,
might be time to maybe tell us about some other stuff you got in the oven there, Sony.
I'm not sure it has other stuff in the oven.
Oh, it definitely got something.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, have they put it in the oven yet, or are they still mixing the batter?
I mean, there's too many developers in there. I mean, they got Ghost of Yote.
Yeah.
That seems like to be your anchor for the year.
I mean, we're due to see a new God of War very soon.
No, we're not.
I mean, well, I guess you're right. 2020. Yeah, we still got some time.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing from Naughty Dog, maybe we see a teaser trailer next year.
Maybe, theoretically.
But
I would be very surprised if it releases. We might finally see that fantasy game, supposedly.
Yeah. And Insomniac, we're waiting for the Venom game. Is that right?
Venom was the next thing on their the hacked leaked list. Yeah. Venom was supposedly next fall, and then Wolverine the year after.
So maybe we see that at Game Awards.
Maybe. I mean, unless they completely pivot away from that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, on one hand, I'm like, I would be kind of fine if we just move past the symbiote stuff at this point. Like, even as an old school Venom fan, I'm like, you know what? I saw the Venom movie this week, and it's just dumb. It's all just so dumb.
You mentioned it last week.
Like, I just can't. Like the interesting part of Venom is that there's the foil of Spider-Man, is the opposite number of Spider-Man. All of Spider-Man's good villains are reflections of him, shot through like a darker lens. Like, and Venom is all the power without. I mean,
literally.
Well, yeah, but like Venom is all the power without any of the responsibility.
Yeah,
is what Peter could become if he had let it all go to his head.
Right.
And now, people don't seem to realize that the costume making him darker, making him meaner, was basically an invention of the cartoon, the Fox cartoon in the 90s, and the Spider-Man 3, the Raimi movie. Mm-hmm. It was just a costume that loved him. And
I remember that. Yeah.
And then we realized it was an alien that was trying to bond with his nervous system. He had Reed Richards take it off him, and he never forgave him for that.
Right.
Although there is a current storyline where he's reunited with the suit right now, and it's basically like two exes arguing while they're fighting. It's very funny, but now that you have the thing like and Spider-Man 2 leans into this heavily, the game leans into this heavily, the idea that the suit makes him darker and kind of more cavalier about using his power. Venom doesn't serve any purpose anymore because the suit has already given you that theme.
But isn't Naughty Dog too far away? Or Naughty Dog, isn't Insomniac too far into it at this point to turn back? If it was coming out next year, the game should be like in polishing stages now.
I mean, to me, that would explain why they've killed all the DLC for 2. Maybe you just cram it all in there and call it a game. You know, I mean, because Miles Morales was not as long as Spider-Man 1. Yep. So if this is your Miles Morales equivalent, it's kind of a mini game, $40 game kind of thing. Which actually would make sense because I don't know if I want to play as Venom for like 40 hours. Like that.
I don't.
No, I certainly don't. I mean, I'd like to hear Tony Todd talk for 40 hours, but I don't really want to play as Venom for 40 hours. Yeah. And I'd really like them to just get on with their other stuff. I really want to play Wolverine. I really want to play Spider-Man 3. I really want to play X-Men. I don't really care to take a Venom pit stop. Yeah. And I know it's not going to accelerate development on Wolverine if they don't do that.
I mean, my guess is Insomniac is like, if we can cancel this game, we should. Because I don't think you're alone in your impressions of Venom. I mean, obviously the data for the film bears it out. Yeah.
And it doesn't, I mean, he just wasn't, it wasn't a compelling version of Venom. To me, it's a different version. Like, kudos to them for finding a kind of a different angle on Venom. Like, that's not a Venom I've really seen before. It meshes a whole bunch of stuff together and takes a different angle and uses Harry for it and all. They didn't just like ape everything that had come before. But I just thought like their version of Otto Octavius in the first game was so compelling to me and such a good new take on a character that has already had a couple of really good new takes on it. And like they really made it their own and made it a really tragic thing and really tied it into Peter's, and they tied it into the newer idea of Peter being a scientist and not just a reporter and or a photographer. And like again, they really made the Dr. Octopus story their own and put a new spin on it and made it really something that mattered. And I just don't really feel like that ended up happening with Venom in the same way. And that's a shame. It kind of did happen with Craven. Like, they kind of pulled something off with Craven. And I say that as someone who does not give any kind of a shit about Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know why they chose him to be
he's
villain.
had one good story, and I really don't even think it was that amazing. But I thought they did a really good job with Kraven in the game.
Yeah.
He was more interesting than Venom to me, which is not something I thought I would ever say. So I feel like if you could just sort of get on with it, it might be not a bad thing. But I don't know what the economics of it are. It's like, is it more?
Are they neck deep?
Is it more advantageous to just like
put it out?
Are you sunk cost to the point that it's better just put it out, because it probably will sell fine.
Yeah.
It'll probably sell Miles Morales.
You'll get your money back probably. Yeah.
And if it's not going to speed up getting Wolverine out, then why bother? Really, just get it done.
I mean, that's the weird thing. It's like Wolverine. Why did they announce it so long ago,
I
knowing
don't
they
know.
had all these other projects? Like, it's really weird.
The story I heard, and the story I usually hear from my developer friends when I ask about stuff like that, is like, you announce stuff that early so you can get people on board. You can hire people.
People who want to work on the
so
Wolverine
people
game.
when you put up jobs for things, people know that they're hiring for Wolverine.
Gotcha.
Like, you're going to be able to staff up a lot easier that way.
That makes sense. So anyway, I don't know how we got on that from Marathon.
That's also apparently how why they announced Blade so early.
Yeah, which now the movie's been pushed back. And
movie's dead.
It's dead.
Yeah.
So now is the game dead?
No, I don't think the game matters. I don't think the game depends that much.
It didn't seem like it
on that. But that movie's gone. All their stuff that is not directly related to getting them through and out of the multiverse story is dead or pushed back. Like, they are focusing on getting through this multiverse thing and basically starting over.
They need to.
Which is correct. Yeah, it's a correct move. They got to get through this and get to the fucking X-Men.
I agree. Yep. So anyway, that's the latest on Marathon. Next up, we learned some kind of insider information about development of the recent Tomb Raider games. A writer on Tomb Raider was explaining how she had watched the new Netflix show. Did you watch that by any chance?
No.
Reviews have not been great for the new Tomb Raider show on Netflix. I've seen a couple people who thought it was okay, and then the rest are like, it's awful.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of like anytime you make a Tomb Raider anything.
It feels that way.
Outside of the games.
Yeah. And what she noticed was that in that show on Netflix, they were able to explore much darker themes. Like, they talk about how she has PTSD from a mission that she went on, and she said that they had pitched that idea in the games, and that they were like, no, you cannot do that with Lara. We don't want her character to be portrayed that way. And then when they work with the people in television and film, all of a sudden they're like, oh, sure, she can have PTSD. Matt, as somebody who works in the film industry, why would they do this? Why would this happen?
I don't know. Like, that's really not the film industry so much as it's just like the license holder decided.
I guess it's more the game side.
Yeah.
Why would you think the game side would be like, nah, we're going to keep it light and fluffy? And here's the thing. Their games aren't light and fluffy. Like, the recent Tomb Raider games are pretty damn gritty.
Yeah, Shadow did get into some, I mean, not PTSD, but they did get into whether or not she's, like, stealing artifacts from indigenous cultures. Like what's Noah kind of calls her out on that at one point.
Not only that, there's an attempted rape in one of the reboot games.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how she kills her first person.
Yeah, I mean,
defending herself against
it's
that.
bizarre to me that they would include...
I mean, she definitely would have... I mean, I would say the main thing about the PTSD rule might just be that that's a very hard thing to address properly in a video game, especially one where you maybe have to have a scene where she goes through that and then swings on a rope across a chasm 14 times. Like, it doesn't really thematically jive.
The writer said that they had figured out how to make it work with flashbacks.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cheap plot device.
I don't like I mean, we'll get to that in the Call of Duty Black Ops thing. I think flashback shit is the cheapest bullshit.
I mean, it is a very cheap way.
There are ways to do it, but you got to choose your moments. And my God, interrupting my Tomb rating to like show me like horrific flashbacks of things that happened to her, especially if it's something that happened off camera. If it's not like, if you're flashing back to like the shit that happened in the first 3 games of the Crystal Dynamics reboot trilogy, sure. Like, you want to like, show me how like that all affected her, cool. But if you're just making up some stuff that happened between games and that's gonna make her like all upset through the rest of the current game, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need that. One could also argue that they had a point, because the cartoon where she is a PTSD survivor is not doing great.
Yeah.
So even by non-chuds that are reviewing it are saying like, yeah, this is all right. But again, she's not that compelling a character, is she? Like,
I mean, she was just like a chick with big boobs.
Pretty
Now
much.
they've kind of been forced into the place of trying to rationalize her.
Well, I mean,
and I feel like they've done a pretty good job.
She's an adventurer. She's Indiana Jones, more or less, for a modern time. But Indiana Jones is not really that interesting a character either. Indiana Jones's interest comes from what he's caught up in and what's happening to him.
The comedy.
And Tomb Raider is actually pretty bad most of the time at coming up with a situation. Like I think the first the definitive edition, whatever you want to call that first Crystal Dynamics reboot one, that's probably the most interesting situation she's ever been in.
Mm-hmm.
Stranded on this island without really an idea of how to survive with these weird things, and then this weird supernatural shit pops up at the end. Obviously very inspired by how Uncharted is structured, but it worked. I was interested. I was interested in the surrounding events beyond just the gameplay for the first time, maybe ever in a Tomb Raider game.
Right.
I don't think they've really captured that in Rise and Shadow so much. Shadow a little bit.
Yeah.
Rise I thought was pretty dull in terms of.
I'll be honest with you, Matt. My brain has blended those two games together. It is very difficult.
Rise and Shadow are very. I mean, Rise has snow and Shadow is in a jungle.
Right.
That's really how I tell them apart.
But my brain has blended those games together. It's hard for me to figure out things that I remember, which game they're in.
Because she's on the same journey in all three of them. It's just she's always just becoming the Tomb Raider. And I'm just like, I think you raid one tomb and you are the Tomb Raider.
Technically, yes.
And that's but it's exactly what I'm saying is the thing about the becoming the Tomb Raider thing they keep repeating is the weirdest thing because it's what does that mean? It sounds like she becomes the Lara Croft we know. And I'm like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah, who is that?
She's a woman with a British accent from a privileged background who steals shit from remote locations and sometimes fights a T-Rex.
Yeah.
That's she's not a character of note. I don't understand what they're talking about there.
Yeah.
And sometimes she gets horribly killed.
And mauled by big animals. I mean, I guess my point would be that I never looked at Lara Croft to become some deep character, and I thought they did a pretty good job in the reboots of giving her as much context as I needed.
I mean, because it's not like Indiana Jones wouldn't have PTSD too.
Right.
By the time of the third movie, he's got brainwashed and had his heart ripped out of his chest by a magic shaman. He had to fight Nazis single-handedly and discovered the Ark of the Covenant and almost was killed by the Angel of Death, except he realized he should close his eyes.
Yeah.
And he woke up among melted Nazis and had to find his way. It's you don't just go back to teaching fucking history after that and be okay with it. And then come on. But it's you don't want to deal with that in a big adventure, two-fisted whip slinging and that's not what this shit is for.
I mean, she was originally, her games were kind of ham-fisted.
Oh yeah,
originally, yeah, a little.
She wasn't running around in the original with dual pistols in a Valley of Gwangi dinosaur world because we were trying to tell a serious story about how fucking people deal with adversity. It's just a fucking swashbuckling adventure, and it should be that. I mean,
it did lose a little bit of its personality in these.
Yeah,
but. Is it for the better ultimately?
I mean, I think they're better games.
Yeah, definitely.
For the most part, I like her more or less as a avatar in these games.
This scene still stresses me out, by the way.
Oh, they do a lot.
Just watching this.
The atmosphere is unquestionable. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I like all three of these games a lot. I played the original, the first Crystal Dynamics reboot. I think I played that 3 times.
Yeah.
I played Rise twice. I played Shadow only once, but I keep wanting to go back and play it again. I just never do because there's no time because that game takes forever.
JJ Forcebreaker says, how about making a fun action adventure with a cool babe visiting great places that fire up the imagination? Why add all these layers of nonsense? It's not a good direction and not playing to strengths of the original spirit.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
You can do that. She doesn't have to be some kind of weird sex pot objectified nonsense object like she used to be. You can make her a real actual character and still have her be hot and still have her be, I mean, Jesus, just have Charlize Theron play her.
Right.
That's automatic right there. That kind of thing, you didn't have to have her tits hanging out, just have her be cool.
Yeah.
It's not like you had to have Harrison Ford running around in skin tight leather all the time. Just fucking be cool.
Yeah, that's all you need.
And go cool places.
Yeah.
But one of the places they shot Indiana Jones at just turned out to have a hidden tomb and skeletons under it all the time.
For real?
Yeah, that temple of Masasa.
I didn't know that.
That the place they leave. It's not the inside was a set. But the Temple of the Grail they go to
I
at the
didn't
end of
know
Last
that.
Crusade. It's the temple that begins with an M. I can't remember what it is. But they just found like this hidden chamber underneath that had like 12 skeletons and a secret. That was like an actual secret tomb.
Yeah.
Under the thing they shot Indiana Jones at. That's great.
That's crazy. I just found it interesting that there were separate rules for video game Laura versus film and TV Laura. I don't know. Usually they make a point to unify those rules, and they'll have somebody like a consultant that works with the film and TV side.
I mean, it might have just been as simple as the pitch was good.
Yeah.
Or they thought they
Right
had a good
moment.
idea.
Yeah.
Or maybe the people making the show convinced them that this is how TV shows are done.
Right.
Sometimes
right.
you
don't really know what you're doing. So
I mean, I
rely
admit,
on us.
sometimes when you're working in film or TV, you can kind of pull that on the licensor where you're just like, oh, we make the show.
Right.
We know what a show needs to be, kind of thing.
I mean, I've done that with like marketing people, and
yeah.
like when they come
Also-
and pitch, like, we need you to make videos about this game, and they'll be like, and this is what we want you to do, and I'd be like, well, we do this for a living.
Also, I can tell
and
you-
we know what our audience will watch.
I can tell you firsthand that you don't always have a choice when it comes to Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Like, and that part of it, they might just be like, oh, we really want this Netflix show to happen, so let's just go with whatever they want to do. It might just be as simple as that. You don't know.
It could be. So anyway, I don't know if any of you guys have watched. It doesn't seem like you have. Like, no one's in our chat saying, I watched it, it's not bad, or I watched it, it's actually good.
It just hasn't. I haven't sat down and watched it. I haven't watched Agatha all along. I haven't watched anything for a while.
Well, there's a Yakuza show, which apparently is like, might as well not be Yakuza. It's like, it's just a show about the Japanese mob, basically.
Well, it's interesting. I saw some of the review. I saw IGN panned it because it wasn't funny, which is like, I don't think you. Yes, I know Yakuza is a blend of wacky and serious melodrama, and they're like, oh, it's all just melodrama. I'm like, did you expect it to be something else? Did you what else did you think a TV show about Yakuza was going to be? Because that's the main story. Like, well,
the original Yakuza wasn't as goofy and weird as it is now. I mean,
it's not goofy and weird, but that's what they're saying, that the show isn't goofy and
right,
weird.
I know.
It's just all straight melodrama, which
Yeah.
the games have always. The main story of every Yakuza game is turgid, over self-serious melodrama.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
And but they've always had the weird, wacky side quests. But like the weird, wacky side quests are not going to be in whatever adaptation they make.
Yeah.
Like, because you can't really balance. Like, you can't tell this like hardcore melodramatic
Story about the Japanese
story about
mob.
all these characters, and then suddenly have Kiryu wander off and like find a bunch of guys in diapers. Like, not. You're like, what if
What a show that would be.
Yeah, it would be a hell of a show, but it feels like you lack the focus. So it has gotten good reviews, but it's like, I don't know what else anybody expected. Like, an adaptation of that series is going to be the core melodrama nonsense, and that's about it. Like, the wackiness in the games is possible because they are games. It's one of the strengths of the interactive medium, is that you can take your time. You can have a 100-hour game where you do all this weird shit, but then you go back to the normal shit and you'll just sort of accept it because you're guiding that experience. And if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. But it's like, forcing that together in a narrative string is going to be very weird in a TV show.
Yeah.
At least they look like themselves. Although I think Kiryu is way too short next to Nishima.
A little bit, yeah.
Like some of those shots, I was like, oh my god.
I haven't watched it. I just saw
shoulder.
some stills, and I was like, oh, okay.
They all look like, and apparently Majima is very underused, which is a crime. But like, I don't know. I might watch it. It's hard. Like, the one good.
It doesn't look like anyone's watched. Okay, Cinetype says I watched 2 episodes so far. It's just okay. But as a fan of the recent trilogy, it's cool to watch.
The good point that IGN did make about the Yakuza thing is that you can't use it as background noise because you have to read the subtitles. It's like,
that'll kill it.
Like, if you don't understand Japanese, you can't really use it as a second screen experience.
Yeah.
So you're sort of stuck paying attention to it, and that's a problem. But everybody, I think they've given it the lowest score. Everyone else gave it pretty high scores and just said, don't expect it to be have goofy stuff like the side quests in the games.
Yeah.
Which
Surf
I did
Spider,
not.
thank you for Twitch Prime, brother. Hardly anyone's talking about Tomb Raider or the Yakuza show.
They probably could have slid a karaoke scene in there, though.
Yeah. Maybe there still will be.
There is not.
Oh, really?
There's no karaoke.
It should have been. That should have been one thing that they got.
You could have gotten away with that one.
Yeah, you could have had a cool scene.
Everyone does karaoke in Japan. You could have, especially those guys. You could have done it.
Yep. Okay, next up, we learned this week that a franchise that at one point in time was very important and very pivotal to PlayStation is now dead, and that franchise is Killzone. If you remember, Killzone was a first-person shooter created by Guerrilla Games. It moved on to Horizon Forbidden West, Horizon Zero Dawn, and it has no interest in going back. And
me and Guerrilla Games, right there with you.
Here is the infamous. Is this E3 2005 or 6? I don't remember.
This is 2000.
This was the big fake trailer. Was it 6?
I want to say it's 5.
Or maybe I think it was 5.
Remember.
I think it was 5.
I want to say it was our first live, because I was running around like an idiot. I didn't get to go to this press conference that this was at, because I was running around preparing for the live show, and I think that was our first year live.
Yep. Well, here's the trailer. Everyone thought this was running in real. They said it was running in real time on PlayStation.
Yeah, they thought that because they were told that's what was happening.
Right. Well, Phil Harrison. Phil Harrison. And I ended up catching him at GDC shortly after this and calling him out on it, that this was not real. This is not the real game. But this just created this crazy groundswell around this franchise for PlayStation fans, so much so that eventually they did put the game out. It wasn't...
Funny thing is, it doesn't even look very good now.
Yeah, I know. No, you're right. But back then, this seemed impossible.
Oh, it was no...
It was impossible.
You've never seen anything like
time.
that.
Yeah. And then they ended up putting out Killzone for PlayStation 3. It was a poor facsimile of what you're seeing right here. It looked nothing like this. And then eventually they released Killzone Shadowfall, and that game was just abysmal, and it pretty much killed the franchise. There was a Killzone for PlayStation 2 before this one, and it had, it had minimal interest or whatever. But then once this trailer came out and PlayStation fans lost their mind over it, Killzone became very, very important. But
perceived as. It was
right.
never actually important.
Because even when it came out, it did not sell crazily well. Yes.
It was important to console warriors. It wasn't important to the market.
Yep. And then they moved on and started making action RPGs. Everyone thought they were crazy when they're like, oh, no, we're not making a shooter next. We're going to make an action RPG.
I knew Horizon was going to be something.
Yeah.
Because they were locked into making these stupid-ass games for so long, and I'm like, this must have been something like bubbling up inside there for years.
Yeah.
Like, they must have been wanting to make this game for years.
Yeah.
And sure enough...
Well, they said Killzone is dead because they have no interest in making it. They don't want to make it anymore. They were glad to move on to Horizon. Yeah.
Good. It was always mediocre.
Yeah.
Not very good. The best thing about Killzone is the sound it made when you shot somebody in the head. Like that little chirp.
Yeah.
I do love that. That was very satisfying.
Yeah.
But these games were some of the most forgettable nonsense.
The PS3 game, it felt like you were running around in sludge. Like, you moved really slowly. It felt like you were playing as, like, a huge mech or something. Like, I don't know.
They were trying to have it be weighty because you had, like, kind of armor on and stuff.
Right.
But it's like everyone was used to movement like Call of Duty or Halo.
Or Battlefield.
And it just didn't... Yeah. Battlefield wasn't really super in play at the time, I think, in the mainstream. Because it wasn't a console series yet.
Yeah. I mean, Battlefield 2 was out there. You're right. It was only PC at that point. And then Bad Company came out and it started crossing over.
Yeah, it took them a long time to sort of, like, edge into that space.
No, you're right. Because for a long time, it could only run on a PC. Yeah. Let's be honest.
64 players, you couldn't do that on a console.
Yeah, absolutely. So, will you miss this at all, Matt?
God, I don't miss it at all. What's to miss?
I won't miss it either.
I mean, I do think they should save them from the PS3. Like,
Yeah.
I think they should put a like a trilogy collection out again from. I wouldn't buy it probably, but like they shouldn't be stuck on the PS3 forever.
I mean, here's the thing, Matt, is that PlayStation could really use a first-person shooter franchise.
Yeah, just not this one.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything. Like, it has this, it has Resistance, and...
Yeah, I would rather have Resistance.
Yeah?
They're
kind of on equal footing for me.
I like Resistance way more.
This is darker and drearier.
I'm not saying Resistance is great.
Yeah.
And Resistance is also weird because, like, they changed it so much in every game. Like, it's hard to kind of say I like the Resistance trilogy because they're all three are very, very different games.
Yeah.
I think 2 is probably the best one.
I think they were doing that on purpose because they were trying to make it a hit.
They're trying to find, Insomniac doesn't rest on its laurels. They're trying to find the balance. They're trying to find where to take it. And I don't think they ever really figured it out.
To be fair, Nintendo doesn't really have a first-person shooter franchise either.
I would say, especially having just played Call of Duty this week for the first time in forever, I don't think they do need. I don't think first-person shooters are really that important anymore. Yeah. As long as you have Call of Duty on your platform in some form, I don't think they really matter that much.
Yeah, I think Metroid Prime is probably as close as Nintendo gets.
Yeah, and that's about as close as they need.
And it's one of its worst-selling first-party games.
And every time they do the first try to do the first person shooter thing, they end up with something like Geist.
No, you're right.
And it's just like maybe you guys should just Just stick to what you're good at.
Nightwing 3060 says that he or she loved the multiplayer in Killzone 2, but that's about it. I did play Killzone 2 multiplayer for a good bit. I mean, good bit meaning like 2 or 3 weeks. But in the grand scheme of things, that's a lot for me because I always have to just keep moving on to another game. If I do stick with multiplayer for more than a week, then that shows a little something. So I would agree with you. The multiplayer was definitely the highlight versus the campaign. Manny on the Moon says, I only played Killzone Liberation on PSP. Interesting. And then Barry Low Max says what I just said. The important thing is that Sony could use a new FPS. It really could. I mean, you're right. Most people who like shooters just buy Call of Duty every year, and it doesn't leave a lot of...
That's why, like, to do what? Like, who's buying that in any appreciable numbers, and certainly in the way that Sony first-party stuff sells?
Yeah.
Like, because, like, are you going to do, like, basically like a Last of Us, but first person? Like, I don't... The other thing is, like, so many people I know who got into games, very much got into games on a regular basis because of those kind of more Uncharted-inspired cinematic stuff, or Dragon, like that kind of thing. They all want to see their character. Yeah. Like, I hear that all the time. I want to see my character. It's one of the things that people, like, complained about with, like, Fallout. Like, people are complaining about, I was going to play Fallout, but it's first I'm like, you can switch to the... I mean, I don't think it works very well. But I'm like, you can switch to third person. I'm like, oh, really? Then I'll go play. I've sold Fallout 4 to some people because they didn't know you could switch to third person. Yeah.
It's true.
Like, that's a big deal for whatever reason.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with Starfield, too. It's like when I see somebody playing Starfield in third person, I'm like, whoa. Because I played the whole thing in first person, but you can play it in third if you want. I would never do that.
No, I don't think Bethesda does the third person thing very well.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think because like FPS is always going to be kind of like a competitive. It's like saying that Sony. To me, it's like saying that Sony needs their own fighting game. Right. They don't. Yeah. Like they have Call of Duty.
That's a decent analogy.
They have Street Fighter, and they're fine.
Again, I think for the average person, they only need one shooter a year, and they're going to buy Call of Duty.
Pretty much.
Because it's supported all year round. I mean, they're still releasing stuff for Modern Warfare 3, and Black Ops 6 is out. I mean, that's great. If you're going to spend $70 on a game, that's what you want.
I think just leave that market for Battlefield and Call of Duty to fight each other out on it. And every once in a while, Microsoft can put out a Halo, and everyone can be like, "Oh yeah, remember when we liked that?" Yeah. Anyway, let's go play Call of Duty.
Like, there's some other studios. Like, I would like to see another shooter from like Machine Games. Like,
oh yeah,
there's some studios that do things a little differently. Like, I'm excited to play Stalker 2 because it's completely different.
Right, that's an action RPG, really.
It really is, yeah, and really hard. So get ready for that one, people. So anyway. That is the latest on Killzone, meaning that there will be no more information about Killzone going forward.
Yeah, like what's the other like majors? I mean, I guess you could make Far Cry style things. Yeah, it's like non-multiplayer focused things.
Single player.
But it feels like that's not working for Ubisoft anymore. So why would you want to like duplicate that?
Yep. J. Reed Vic, thank you for Twitch Prime, brother. Appreciate it. Next up, this is a weird one, Matt. So, Nintendo announced this week, you may not even know this if you don't play a lot of mobile games, but there is a free-to-play Animal Crossing game on mobile called Animal Crossing Pocket Camp.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
It has been out for a really long time. It has done really well. Just like I mentioned a second ago about Call of Duty, they have flooded this game with DLC across the years. Well, like 6 months ago, Nintendo announced that it was going to end the run for Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. And I was like, okay, it's a mobile game. It's been around for years. That makes sense. It's about time to sunset the game. Well, then yesterday, Nintendo actually shared that it's not really sunsetting the game. Instead, it is turning Animal Crossing Pocket Camp from a free-to-play game to a paid game. Beginning December 3rd, as you see right there on the screen, 2024, it is going to be a paid game. It's going to go from being free to cost $20 for people who have never played it before. If you have played the mobile version, you'll be able to buy the final version for $8 instead of $20. But ultimately, there's going to be this ultimate version that includes all the DLC that they've released for this game since it was launched in one package for $20, and the free-to-play version is going away.
So it's kind of the opposite of what Ubisoft did with The Crew.
Yeah. Why? This is bizarre to me. I don't know if I've ever seen this happen before. Can you think of another example? Or something went from free to play to paid. Usually it's the reverse.
But I mean, this is an interest. I can't think of another example of it, but it's kind of a good idea.
You think so?
Well, because this is not really. They're not switching the live service game to pay. They are killing the live service and saying, "Here's everything we put out for this. You can just play as an offline game."
But it was free before.
Right, but that was while they were making money from microtransactions on the live service,
Right.
and that is no longer a revenue stream. So their last revenue stream for this game will be, hey, if you just want to buy it and play it without the hassle of having like a live
Daily
service
check-ins and all that other
check-in
crap,
thing, like
yeah.
here you go. Here's an offline Animal Crossing for your phone for $20. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess I could see from the perspective of someone who's been playing this game for years.
And it preserves it.
It's
You
better,
know?
right?
It means the game doesn't vanish into the ether forever.
That's a really good point. Because we also learned this week that, like...
That's what I mean by the crew. It was like, you know, it's the opposite of like shutting it down and pulling it off everybody's accounts.
Yeah. Well, we also learned this week that the trademark office here in America has denied the plea to allow basically like libraried games to be playable over like the internet or whatever. And so for game preservation purposes, that's a huge, huge detriment. And you're right. Like this will actually make sure that the game sticks around. I would imagine if you're someone who's been playing this for years, $8, probably you're okay with that to be able to keep playing a game that you like, even though you may have already dumped $300 into the game over its lifespan. That's a little weird. Like I feel like if you had maybe spent like $100, like they should just give it to you for free.
Yeah, probably. But, you know, how do you even track that?
Yeah, I mean, you can
could,
with the
but-
counts and everything, but it gets complicated for sure.
You turn it into a weird have-not whale.
I mean, I guess they're kind of showing it right here how it's going to work, actually.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be able to transfer your save data over to the new complete version. But anyway, this is something that hasn't really happened before, and when this occurs, we like to bring it to your attention because at this point, it's hard to find stuff in the gaming industry that has not happened before. It just is. It's the law of diminishing returns.
Vincent says Mega Man X Dive did this.
Did it?
I mean, I never played that either.
I don't even remember that game, actually.
I remember it. It was a mobile Mega Man game, and then I guess when they shut it down, I remember because you can get that I think on PC now too, like for
really?
like a full complete offline version.
Drifter J says, I'm not a Nintendo fan, but I wish other games did this.
Yeah, I think this is a good way to sunset something.
Because they do sunset mobile games. Every mobile game eventually
yeah,
goes away.
I have so many mobile. I have an iPad that I purely have. I think it's on OS 11 or 12 now still.
Wow.
Because otherwise I can't play a bunch of stuff that I bought. Like a bunch of games are not. You know, there was that split. I don't remember which OS it was, but there was a split where all of a sudden I think it was 14. Either it got updated to 14 to work on 14 or it didn't work anymore. So if I update that iPad, I can't play half the things I have. Or my comic reader, which I love comic reader. So I'm just going to keep that as my comic reader and like old licensed mobile games that have been abandoned, like the Voltron game and stuff that like you can't play anymore or anything.
Our iPad is so old that we can't update it anymore.
I bet mine probably
it's
couldn't update
stalled
anymore.
at like 13.5 or something. We went to update it last week, and it's like, sorry, Charlie, you're cut off. That's the end of the line.
Yeah, I think mine is left in the is a brick basically.
Yeah,
At this
but
point.
here's the thing: like that iPad still works great for everything
Yeah.
we use it for. I don't know why people keep buying iPads. Like we have one that's like 9 years old that still does pretty much everything we need it to do.
My only reason to get another one would be to have more storage space.
Yeah,
because I basically it's full of comics.
Yeah,
I
could see that.
I could use some space.
Yeah. So anyway, Vincent did find another example. I had not heard of it. Have this happen? I haven't even heard of Mega Man X Dive, to be honest with you. Like maybe in the dark recesses of my mind, it's back in there somewhere. I don't remember the name of it. But this is very rare. Again, this has only happened twice ever, so we like to bring it to your attention so you know what's going on.
This
in
was
the
not
industry.
even the best Nintendo news of the week.
Is it in our headlines? The
Nope.
best? Well, what is the best Nintendo news?
The last Wii U exclusive has been saved from the Wii U.
Oh, right. That happened this morning.
Xenoblade Chronicles X is getting a Switch release.
That was the last one. We've mentioned it on this show.
I mentioned, it's the last thing.
You specifically have mentioned that game as the last thing to be rescued from Wii U, and there you go.
Here we are, finally.
Yeah.
Now, fingers crossed, they give us an option to turn the music down without turning the sound effects down, because you couldn't do that in the
Nintendo
original.
never lets you do that. You can never just turn the music down in Nintendo games.
So weird.
It's awful for editing purposes. It is awful. Like any video editor who has to edit like a Nintendo
but if any
video
game,
review,
they put it's like, I don't want to hear that fucking music anymore, but I need the sound effects so I can know when I'm locking on shit. Like I need to hear the things, but I can't listen to the fucking vocal song anymore. I'm sorry.
it never lets you do it.
No,
Nintendo
it's
never lets
crazy.
you turn down the music. I don't know why. It's really bizarre, but it never does.
I played that game until I got the mech, and then I realized that I didn't care anymore. Like, my whole driving force in that game was to get the mech.
Yeah.
And it took like 30 hours.
Yeah.
But like, I finally got in the mech, and I'm like, oh, I don't care anymore. happened to me That happened to me in City of Heroes the first time I played it too. I was like, I wanted to get flight. I want to be able to fly. I got to fly, and you grind and grind and grind. I got to fly, and I'm like, I got to fly. Oh, I don't care anymore. I don't care about this game anymore. I do that all the time.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. Next up, we got some bad news and some good news coming out of Ubisoft this week.
We got some bad news and some bullshit.
Okay. Well, the first news that we have is that the team who built Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which is a game that Matt and I both liked. I think its Metacritic score was like mid to high 8. Mm-hmm. It sold really poorly, and so Ubisoft has completely disbanded the team that developed Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. So we're not going to get another 2.5D Prince of Persia game, which some people may not be happy about, but most people don't care because they didn't buy the game and they weren't interested in it in the first place. So that's kind of the bad news, but kind of the good news is that a lot of those team members have been moved on to Beyond Good and Evil 2. And Beyond Good and Evil 2, Matt, in fact, is alive and in active development. Michelle
that is not dead, which can eternal lie. It's the Cthulhu of video game development.
Well, some of the stories coming out about this are that Michel Ancel has been called back in to work on this, and most of the people at Ubisoft are not happy about that because
all his input is just make the pig guy grosser.
Because according to several Ubisoft employees, he was one of the big problems with the work culture there. That he was a jerk to work for, no matter what you did. And it wasn't like sexually harassing employees or anything.
He was just kind of
French.
He
was a tough boss. Like, no matter what you did, it wasn't good enough. He would shoot down people's ideas. He would call people stupid in meetings in front of other people. Stuff like that. But on the flip side, it does appear that this game is very quickly going to go back into full production, and we may actually play it one day.
I mean, it is kind of their last shot at something interesting that they've got kind of already cooking.
Yeah.
Even in any form. But, I mean, I'd like to play it.
Me too.
Whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, I mean, this CG trailer is amazing.
Sure. I mean, who knows if this is even going to be relevant anymore.
I don't know. Like
I assume we'll still see this girl and the chimp guy. I don't remember their names.
Well, they also put out, like, if I can find it, I don't know if I have it here on the TriCaster, unfortunately. They put out a bunch of other stuff related to it. Like, they put out some gameplay. Let me see if this... No, this is the OG Beyond Good and Evil 2
that's
trailer.
the 2008.
Yeah, this is the OG one that we got, and then nothing else for, like, 10 years or whatever. It went underground. But they did put out a bunch of gameplay of the game that looks like the art style of the CG trailer. So my guess is the game is still going to look like this, still going to be set in this universe. It seems that way. I mean, they could completely flip the script and just trash it and start over again, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. Based upon the things that were said about it, it sounds like they're going to pick up development where it was left off last time. So It looks like we will eventually, and God knows when, my guess is 3 or 4 years from now, we'll play this game.
Yeah, I mean, I know I didn't finish it, so I don't know what it is, but I know there was apparently stuff added to the remake of the first one that just came out that had
there's a hint in there.
There's hooks to the sequel in it somewhere.
Yeah,
which is weird because as far as we saw before, it's a prequel.
Right.
Yeah. So who knows?
I don't know either. I'm just glad this is still in development. I am still interested in this game after all this time.
But it's one of those I'll believe it when it's literally installed on my hard drive games.
Yep. And then our final
Much like the KOTOR remake.
Yeah. And then our final piece of news for headlines for GameFace 409 is some sales information we got for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 this morning. And as you guys know, this is the first Call of Duty launched on day one on Game Pass. And so we're watching the sales of this very closely to see what the impact will be. And in the UK, sales of Call of Duty are down 10% year over year. So as it appears right now, and again, it's only been 4 or 5 days since it launched, but as it appears right now, it looks like what you're going to lose by putting something on Game Pass is roughly around 10% of sales of that game. Is that worth it, Matt? Do you think?
I don't know. It depends what their margins are.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, this whole saga, it's been hard to figure out what is the right move and what is the wrong move, because it always feels like we need more data, more context to make a good call on it. Even with this information that it's down 10%, despite it being one of the highest reviewed Call of Duties in a really long time. if this is really what it is, 10%, that one feels about right to me. It's about what I thought would happen. And two, I do think it probably would make financial sense for Game Pass.
More or less, probably. I mean, again, we don't know what their margins or expectations are on that. I don't know. It's just such a different business model, and we don't know enough internal numbers on it to know one way or the other, or what they would even consider successful.
Yeah, because the problem is we don't know how much money Microsoft is making off of Game Pass, like on a per game basis. And without that information, it's hard to figure out how
and even then,
a single game impacts everything.
And even that doesn't even matter, because you also need to know what they expect to make, or what they demand to make.
Right.
You know, like it.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't matter how many copies Tomb Raider sells if Square thinks it has to sell 10 million.
Right.
You know,
like you could still kill the team.
You could be the best-selling game of all time, and well, we thought we were going to get more.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then you were an idiot.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter, because they're the ones that hold the power.
Yep.
So it's too many X factors, too many variables that we don't know about, unless we were to, I don't know, infiltrate Microsoft somehow. And to be honest, if I'm going to infiltrate somewhere to find some secret information out, it's going to be something more worthwhile than whether Game Pass is successful.
I mean, I'm kind of feeling at this point, Matt, that we're probably never going to get enough information to figure out whether this stuff is working or not.
Not unless and until Game Pass stops.
Right. And then they're like, well, we'll be honest with you now.
Somebody who worked on some things will one day be like, well, it was actually this. It was like the not to go too Hollywood on you, but Terry Garr died today. Leaving Gene Hackman as the sole surviving member of the cast of Young Frankenstein.
Wow.
But if you look this up, she did an interview with the AV Club in 2008, which is one of the greatest I'm out of the game and don't give a fuck anymore interviews I've ever read, where she's just constantly dropping some shit that no one knew about some of these different people and different situations and different movies. And she's like, oh my God, I shouldn't say that. Don't quote me. Nah, go ahead and quote me. Like, go ahead. But it's just like all these things where you're just, you know, a lot of stuff, people found some stuff out about a lot of things. And like, it was great. It's a lot of fun because she was there. She was in the room for so much. You know, she did Elvis movies.
Right.
And like every once in a while, you get someone who's just like, I'm too old to care. I'm never doing this again, and I don't care who knows that I squealed. So here we go. And like one day we may get someone who was on the inside of Game Pass that like knows where all the bodies are buried and knows when the numbers were and knows how the higher ups in the brass felt about everything as it happened. That would be a really fun tell-all book, maybe in like 20 years or something.
I'm gonna write a book someday. And there will be stuff like that in it. I won't burn anybody personally, but I'll definitely share stories that like I haven't shared before, without a doubt. And I have a lot. There's some PR people out there who are shaking in their boots right now hearing that.
I'm not going to write that book, but I'll contribute some things if you want some good stories.
You can help, for sure. So anyway,
there you go. I got some I haven't told.
I know we all do. Believe me. I have some stories I haven't even told you, Matt. But if you work with me on my book, I will absolutely share them with you. So there you go. Black Ops 6 sales down 10% as of the first 4 or 5 days. We'll see if that holds over the entire month and over the months to come. But I think the one thing we can say, Matt, is that it's likely that Game Pass definitely negatively impacted the sales of the game.
Seems like it. I mean, it might also be. It's like probably I would either say that plus maybe. I don't know how appealing this setting is to the general audience.
Gulf War.
I mean, it is as old as Vietnam was when we were you know, in like 20-somethings.
Yeah. I was just talking to my mom last night, and she was saying how she is retired now, but she works as she goes out on ambulances as a chaplain on ambulance calls, and she talks to a lot of young people. And she was just telling me that, trying to figure out rhyme or reason with those kids is impossible. It was very interesting to hear her perspective on the younger generations, for sure. But anyway, Black Ops down 10%. I think that makes sense within the context of everything that we know, but we don't know enough to really make the call on whether Game Pass is a horrible idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, hell, for all we know, it's down 10% in the UK because there's no British people in the game.
Seriously.
You're right. There's no Captain Price.
So this is a very small sample size, for sure. So, okay, there you go. And that is the last story for headlines. We're about to review Call of Duty Black Ops 6, but before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass.
and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. Ellis Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted.
Well, with election night just a week away, it might be a good time to go pick yourself up a bottle of LS Cream for next Tuesday to make sure you got something to put on the rocks just in case worst case scenario happens. Go to creamls.com/sifted. This actually would be a great thing to just sip on throughout the entire night. Just put a little...
that Mad Men thing where I think it was I can't remember what it was. I think it was the Kennedy assassination in Mad Men where like or maybe it wasn't an election, but it was like someone turns to the one guy, the younger guy, and goes like, "Have you been drinking?" And he goes, "The whole country's drinking."
I think next Tuesday there'll be a lot of alcohol consumed. So go to creamls.com/sifted. You can figure out where to get it locally there, or you can figure out how to get a bottle shipped to your house. But again, this is great for a long-term drinking engagement. You can put some in your drink and just sip it. You're not going to get trashed, but it'll take the edge off. Maybe remove a little bit of that anxiety a lot of people are going to have on election night. Go to creamls.com/sifted.
Or just mix the whiskey with the LS Cream, which is really...
That's actually really good,
what
too.
election night's going to demand.
Yeah.
Here.
I'll say this, too. Like, I don't normally like whiskey that much, but if you mix this with whiskey, I do like it.
Yeah, there's very few things that LS Cream doesn't cut.
Yeah, it doesn't mix
and
well
make more
with.
pleasant.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Yep.
Maybe not daiquiri.
No.
I wouldn't do that.
No, that's definitely... Could you imagine putting some LS Cream in with a strawberry daiquiri?
Yeah, it's probably... I mean, unless you're into the curdle.
Yeah, Matt, our crew's not drinking daiquiris, man.
Yeah, probably not.
They're definitely not drinking daiquiris.
It's not a margarita kind of thing.
Mighty Pony Girl says, some cray mass while we wait for the results from the mass. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know what the result from mass will be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, it's time to get on with our first review in GameFace episode 409. It is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Matt, you played a Call of Duty game.
Yeah, well, I mean, what was the last one I played? Probably World War II.
Yeah, I think that was the last one. Yep. Yeah. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to go through these. So there's 3 parts to the game. We're going to talk about all 3 of them, some more than others. We're going to talk about the campaign first. Then we're going to talk about multiplayer, and then we're going to talk about zombies. And each one of those deserves its own little discussion because all 3 of them are worth talking about, and 2 of them are gigantic.
Well, spoilers, I only played the campain.
Okay, I'm not surprised to hear that, Matt.
Well, partly because I don't care, but also because, man, so I hadn't played my PS5 in a while, not since Astrobot, and I forgot how much it does that LAN cable thing.
Oh, on your particular unit.
And I don't know if you know this, but if that happens, it boots you out of Call of Duty.
Oh, right.
Like, I can't even play the campaign.
Right.
Like, it boots you completely back to the launcher and is like, you can't play this if you're offline. And I'm like, fuck you.
I didn't even think about that.
And so I had to switch to Wi-Fi to even play for more than 5 minutes at a time uninterrupted because it was being really bad.
That's
and I couldn't,
crazy.
I'm like, I forgot about that. And I'm like, oh, right, that's why I need a PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
Is to get a system that doesn't do the LAN cable.
That's
Because it's done that from probably like 2 months after I got it.
Yeah, I've never had any problems like that.
It seems to be very individual console to individual console.
Wow.
Case by case.
So bizarre.
And Sony won't do anything about it because apparently it's wear and tear.
2 months after you owned it. Good one.
So yeah, I basically did that, and then I poked at the online, but I have a moral objection to being the high ping bastard, and on Wi-Fi it just wasn't gonna cut it.
Well, we're going to talk mostly about the campaign anyway, because I did already talk about multiplayer like for a good 20 minutes when I was in the beta. And I'll talk about the differences with the retail version versus the beta version, but I'm not going to go as in-depth as I did back then on the multiplayer. So we're going to talk mostly about the campaign today. And Matt, a lot of people are saying that the campaign is the best in years. You haven't played it for years, so you probably have no context for whether that's true or not.
It ain't better than Infinite Warfare's.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we may be waiting forever for that to be eclipsed.
Probably. I don't think it's that interesting, really, but I do appreciate what they're doing, because this is Treyarch, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Treyarch's thing for me used to be, it was just this, it was a Michael Bay movie. It was just up here the whole time, and it never wavered. It was
no
just
peaks and valleys.
go. And like, I am actually pretty impressed by how willing they are to slow it down, take a breath, and do something different. The mission at the fact that you go to the safe house and talk to people and sort of get some context and some texture there is really good.
That's been in the last couple Treyarch.
Yeah,
games.
I don't obviously I don't know for what, but I
but
thought
this is better. Like those old ones were like these weird like and this is also a safe house, but the other ones were these weird like military outpost things.
Right. This was more like
this is personable.
There's like puzzles to solve and things to look around and it expands out as you go. There's an actual kind of really rudimentary base building aspect to it.
Yeah. Very rudimentary.
But there's like little things where like
we should set up the plot of this first.
Yeah, but I was impressed by some of the missions that weren't just your standard Call of Duty run and gun shit.
Yep.
Which is good, because I didn't really enjoy the run and gun stuff very much.
Well, this is set in the early 90s. The Cold War is coming to a close. So there's like missions set in like Kuwait and Iraq. You mostly play as William Case Calderon.
One of the most lazily censored names in the history of censoring names.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's intentional, but it's just one of those things where it's like, what's that about? Like,
yeah. And
that's a Black Ops thing. I know I remember as I played this, there were moments where like, oh, all right, because I haven't played a Black Ops game since I think 2.
Oh wow!
And so there's a moment.
Been a long time.
There's a bunch of stuff where I'm like, am I supposed to know that guy? Like, there's a bunch of characters where I'm like, is that a recurring character that I don't realize because I haven't played these games?
It doesn't matter.
No.
That's the thing. It really doesn't matter at all.
Is Woods
He's a recurring character.
I remembered him in is Adler?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
He's
like the 80s action movie hero.
Yeah. He seemed like that, but I couldn't tell if it was because he was like a recurring character in the series, or if he just like that's who he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And he seemed like he was probably voiced by somebody. I couldn't tell.
Well, basically the whole plot centers around this woman named Jane Harrow, who has defected from the CIA and started working with this group called Pantheon. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy because this game is kind of like Resident Duty or Call of Evil, because the whole plot centers around a bioweapon. So she goes rogue and she takes some research that she stole from the CIA, and they're working on this bioweapon, and it's your job, obviously, to stop her. She's been a traitor to the CIA or whatever.
I mean, traitors are Call of Duty's bread and butter, really.
Yeah. And so they're trying to create super soldiers using this biomechanical whatever thing that they're developing, in case, as it would so happen, used to be a part of that program. I'm not going to spoil what happens with that, but he was a part of that program back in the day, and so he has better ties to Jane Harrow than some of the other people that he works with. So, as Matt alluded to, eventually, after this opening mission, all hell breaks loose. You need to go on the run. So you and your commander...
Adler was in Cold War.
Was he in Cold War? I don't remember him.
I mean, I can't tell you. I
don't remember him in there for some reason, even though I played it. But maybe that just shows you how forgettable the whole thing
that
was.
might be more of a criticism of Cold War, really.
I don't remember him at all.
By the way, does a stupid flashback thing where it starts with like they're all in a meeting being debriefed, and you keep flashing back to I just cannot quite explain how much more interesting it would be to just play this straight through and then go to the meeting and realize how much trouble they're in.
Well, I'll say this, Matt. I was very nervous that the whole game was going to be that way.
Oh, 100%. Because like,
and then it's not. Thank God.
Certainly the early Black Ops games overuse the framing device.
Every Call of Duty uses it over and over.
Annoying.
And I was very nervous. But as it turns out,
after one mission, you catch up and you're in the present.
So you go to this. You're seeing it right now. You're in the safe house. You and your commander. And you start going on missions. Woods is there as well at first. And you start going on missions. And as you go on these missions, you start meeting new people who become a part of your crew and come to the safe house. And they all have
it's all very BioWare.
Kind of, yeah.
You gather the crew and you go talk to them, and they all spill their guts to you for extremely weird reasons, for considering that you aren't a speaking character.
Or they'll give you a lecture about morality.
They do that a lot. Yes, it's like...
So your crew there's a tech guy named Felix. There's Frank Woods, who is the wounded ex-soldier.
Felix, who doesn't want to get his hands dirty, and they're like, you are an ex-East German spy. You are not clean, sir. Is Frank Woods the guy you played as in Black Ops 1?
Yeah.
Like that's the original
Well, now he's
protagonist?
in a wheelchair, as you can see him
Yeah.
right there. So he's kind of like your intel guy now. He doesn't go out in the field and actually fight.
He's also the standard cranky old guy.
Yeah. The guy who tells you how it used to be. And
Who sounds a little bit like somebody still like sounds a little bit like David Hayter still trying to do the Solid Snake voice.
Yeah.
Like it's a weird
it
performance.
is. Yep. And then there's a female soldier named Sev, and she's there to kind of withhold. What I like to say is she's there to withhold important backstory until you find it out yourself.
She's the exposition filter.
she knows everything.
Because they established that at the very first. She's like, oh, there's very little I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you're not telling me.
Then she
what you
waits
know.
for you to almost die. She's like,
Right.
oh yeah, I knew all about that before you almost died.
You wouldn't have believed me until you lived through it.
Exactly.
It's a lot of that happening.
You do go on a lot of missions with her, and I generally liked her as a character.
She's my favorite of the team.
And then there's Troy, the commander, the black guy that we showed here earlier in the B-roll. You and him roll to the safe house first. You start building your team.
He's funny because like you expect to get to know him better, but every time you talk to him in the safe house, he's usually like, you should go talk to whoever and find out more.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, I was going to talk to you because I thought you might be a character in this game, but apparently not.
Yeah. And then Adler, the 80s action movie star, he kind of comes and goes. He's not in the safe house all the time.
Well, he can't be held down, man.
Right.
He's like a leaf in the wind. He's got to go where the world takes him.
Yeah. And then that's your crew, and you end up playing as all of these people eventually. Like, you'll play a mission as pretty much every one of these people, except for Woods, who obviously is in a wheelchair and can't fight. But pretty much everybody else, you'll have at least one mission where you'll play as them. And then in traditional Call of Duty style, you brush elbows with some celebrities. Bill Clinton is in this game. You'll see him in the B-roll in a little bit. You saw earlier Lou Diamond Phillips plays like the head of the CIA or whatever. But then, like, this game, like, you'll see in the thumbnail when we publish this episode that there are moments in this game. Did you finish the campaign, Matt?
No.
Oh, okay. So you may not have got to it yet. But there are moments in this game where there is no way in hell you'll know it's a Call of Duty game. I could show you 30 screenshots I took playing this game, and if I showed them to you, in a million years, you would never guess that it was from Call of Duty. It kind of jumps the shark almost in a little bit, Matt. Like, one thing I will say, I don't know if I want to mention it because it's kind of a big spoiler, but
I mean, you already mentioned the Harrow thing. That's kind of a spoiler.
The what thing?
Harrow.
Harrow?
The woman. The CIA woman.
I mean, that's just the plot.
Yeah, but that comes pretty fairly amount in. You don't know that early on.
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't. Not until after the Clinton dinner.
Right. But that's like the second mission.
It's a couple hours in.
Is it?
Took me that long to get through some of that because I didn't know where to fucking go through half that. It felt long. It felt like a long time. Maybe it wasn't.
So to not spoil anything, all I'm going to say is the plot in this game explains something about the Call of Duty franchise that a lot of people have been like, what the hell about for a really long time. And it goes to places you would never guess Call of Duty would go to explain it. And that's not necessarily why I think that this is a fresh take on Call of Duty or anything like that. I just think it's a pretty good campaign in general. But there is some stuff in here that like ties together some questions that if you're a Call of Duty fan, you've probably had for a really, really long time.
About the story or about what Call of Duty as what?
It's, yeah. Again, I don't want to spoil it because it's kind of a big deal. So anyway, my big complaint, and I think the plot's pretty good. I think it does a good enough job of making you care about each person in your crew. They all come from different places, but they all have a reason for being there that makes sense and aligns with kind of your ideals and your goals. But my big issue with this is that they, to your point kind of, they never really established Jane Harrow as like a really bad villain. Like, I didn't hate her. Mm-hmm. And I didn't feel like there was
it's hard to hate anyone for betraying the CIA.
Right.
You know, it's like there's a bunch of, like, and Pantheon is like the bad guy because they're shooting at you, but I haven't gotten to the point where I really understand why nobody likes Pantheon other than the fact that they're shooting at me.
And that is tied into what I was talking about that I don't want to spoil.
It's just one of those things where it's like, it is a little hard to get invested in a lot of this because the sides are so nebulous and, like, the stakes are so weird. Like, it's like you never quite know who you're fighting or why you're fighting them or what you're trying to do, because like some of it's just because you don't know, and some of it's just like because that's the nature of a Cold War or kind of the era they're talking about. There's parts of this game where I'm like, you know what, I miss the days when like these games were about fighting Nazis or they were about fighting
clear evil,
clear like I always knew who I was fighting in Call of Duty 4. Like there were no, and like, yeah, you a lot of times you had one traitor on the inside or whatever, but on this you're like, oh, you don't know who to, you're doing an X-Files sort of, you don't know who to trust thing. But like, it's kind of dull because you hit a point where like, okay, nobody in the safe house is probably going to betray me because they put too much work into integrating them into how the fucking game system work, and it's just sort of weird. Like it's not very satisfying in that regard because it's just like I don't know what I'm doing anymore, and I like there are moments like not this one, sort of this one where you're running through these areas and they're good chases, like it's a good set piece, but I'm like I don't know who I'm shooting. It's just a bunch of guys in suits
that are shooting at me.
The only way I know who to shoot is that I see them shoot at me first.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah,
and that doesn't really feel very. I don't know how to really describe it. It just. There was a part of it that just made me miss when, things were a little more black and white.
I agree.
And I know that that's sort of like a very boomer thing to complain about. It's just like, I miss when you knew who was there and when men were men and but it's just like, it's true. It's just like, I don't play Doom and wonder who the demons are.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of the fantasy, right?
Like, you're right. Yeah. It is very hard to tell like who the bad guys are in this game. And the other thing that makes it muddy is that Jane, I don't even know if you got to this part of the game yet, but Jane eventually ends up in Case's ear. Almost like he has an earpiece in, and she's talking to him.
Well, that was the part where I kind of really finally, because I was a lot of points where I'm forgiving how sketchy they are with the tech in this game in terms of what year it is.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, it's February 1991, and I'm driving remote vehicles into guys with explosives attached.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, we didn't actually do that then. But like. And then, like when you're talking to the camera there, the camera on the desk, Felix modifies it so they can watch through your camera when you're running around doing missions. And I'm like, and talk to you about what they see. And I'm like, oh, you just couldn't do this without body cam. Like you don't remember how to do these things without body cam footage and having the guy in your ear know exactly what you're doing at all times to tell you what to do next. And when she popped up, I'm like, okay, is there anybody I can't immediately fucking call in this world? Because I was alive in 1991, and that's just not how anything worked. Even if you were in the fucking super secret Pantheon CIA operative exiled to the whatever.
Well, they softened Jane by her talking to you throughout pretty much 70% of the game. It's like, wait, we know each other from way back when. We were actually friends. We're still kind of friends.
Yeah. Well, she's about to show up here.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like it bounces back and forth where she's kind of doing that thing where she's like, you need to be careful. Like she's trying to act like she's your friend, and of course it's just like I just didn't want you involved in this because I care about it. And like and there is an element of like I think that's somewhat intentional and that they're kind of depicting this as sort of the turning point in sort of history where like they're doing the thing where you don't know who's on your side intentionally. They're doing the thing where everything is a little more nebulous intentionally. The explanation you're talking about sort of removes it from that kind of context because you're like, I thought you were about to go into a socio-political statement about how the Clinton presidency sort of changed how we're seen on the world stage, but
right on cue, there is Clinton on.
Yeah, but no, that's not what this is. Anyway, I thought it was funny that they just could not let go of the idea that everyone can talk to you at any given moment and tell you exactly what you have to do next.
Yeah.
Because you know what didn't happen in the World War II games? That.
Yeah. I mean, truth be told, the plot is pretty good in this. Like, as far as Call of Duty games go, it's one of the better ones for sure.
It would be. I think I would probably watch this show.
Yeah.
I don't think I cared so much about playing it.
We didn't finish it. So.
No. Well, part of that's just time. I didn't have a lot of time.
This is a little longer. It took me, I think, 6 hours to finish this one. Usually they're 4 or 5.
It's just not very interesting to me in a lot of ways. Not in the sense that the story's not interesting, but I'm just like, I was a little shocked by the fact that I can tell how smooth the gameplay is in this. Mm-hmm. And I still don't really have fun playing it. It's not. I don't find. I'm just over the first-person shooter.
Yeah.
I just don't care anymore.
Well, I'll keep bringing them to your attention. Maybe one day you'll play one that kind of strikes your fancy.
It's here and there. Like I like Doom. I like
Oh,
the
yeah.
new Dooms.
That's a good point.
Like
Yeah.
I like the Wolfensteins. I like a big campaign, but like, I don't know. I don't know what the difference. I mean, I just am not super interested in the modern military theme. I'm not even really interested in the World War II theme anymore. It's just like
Well, we've played so many of
played
these
so many of
games.
them, and like it's just the world isn't like that.
Yeah.
Like the part of the interesting thing is like having like this is when it's like no politics in my. It's like every work of art is political. You can't get away from that.
Course. Yeah.
But like this is just sort of like I don't know. It reminds me of like, again. You couldn't do this in 1991. I don't know any other way to say it. Like it's just
have a little remote that
a
can
little
shot
remote
people.
thing that can run around with like fucking HD cam footage here. Like it's like I know you put a filter over it, but it's like that's just it just felt like they weren't willing to really embrace the time period they were in, and I think that would have maybe been more interesting because they did that. I know enough about the other Black Ops to know that like when you played Black Ops 1 and 2, you were definitely dealing with 60s technology.
Yes. Yeah, they were better about it then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the nuts and bolts of the campaign a little bit more, though. So, oddly enough, the game is kind of driven by cash. You find cash laying around.
But I didn't for a long time.
It was stingy at first.
Like it wasn't until like halfway through the next mission, I think after this one, where I'm like, oh, he's telling me to find money. I haven't found any money. Like what? I'm like, am I supposed to be looking for money? Like, am I supposed to be robbing people at gunpoint? Like, what am I doing? And like then when I started looking around more,
Well, then you start cracking the safes, and you start getting $1,000 every time I crack a safe.
But is there money in those like first couple missions?
Not a lot,
because like I didn't find any.
Oh, there's a little. I think I got like $400 or something through the first couple missions, just enough to unlock.
I granted wasn't paying attention too much, but like I started with you start with $500 or $700 or something to unlock one thing and one perk.
Yeah,
and that's all I had for quite a while.
So anyway, that's how it works. You collect money, and then you go back to the safe house, and there's one station, but it does two things. You can buy weapons with the money and upgrade the weapons, but there's also perks. And perks for the very first time are in the campaign in Call of Duty. So you literally pay for these little buffs that will give you like faster reloads, better damage output, stuff like that. None of that really seemed to matter.
Yeah, I didn't notice much of a difference.
Because you can pick up any weapon. It's like in the campaign is set up that way. It's like, hey, here comes a sniper section. Here's the most badass sniper rifle you've ever seen leaning up against a tree.
Yeah, you can't really get too attached to any of your weapons.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of the upgrades.
I picked health upgrades and like gadget upgrades.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at. Spend all your money on health upgrades and armor plate upgrades. And that's literally all you need to upgrade. Like at the end of the day, when you get to the end of the game, it all seems very frivolous because you also have enough money to basically buy anything. If you're cracking enough safes, you end up with so much cash, you don't even know what to do with it. In the end, I just started spending all my money on weapons in the HQ. So the economy balance isn't great. It's very stingy at first, as Matt points out. But by the end of the game, it's not so stingy anymore. But there's just nothing worth buying because, again, like a lot of it is weapons or weapon upgrades, and every enemy drops a weapon, and you can just pick up that weapon and use it if you want to. And a lot of times you have to because you run out of ammo for whatever weapon you actually went out on the sortie with. So there's an economy in the game, but it's also kind of pointless. There's 22 total missions. There's chunks of open world missions, or there's missions with chunks of open world in them, at least 2 of them, where you go into an open world and they literally let you go and do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, those weren't bad. I mean, I only played the one, and I guess sort of this one sort of counts because you wander around the dinner party and get to choose which.
There's 3 different ways that you can solve it. Yeah,
which I thought was pretty good.
It's cool.
Right. I like that.
This scene's a bunch of BS. But...
I mean, this is the demo. They did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it figures that once you get
it
figures once you get Adler, this is what happens, right?
It's just this completely ridiculous.
It's just like, okay, we got Kurt Russell out of the thing. I guess we got to have a fucking chase throughout the whole city now.
Yeah. But anyway, there are these missions that are open world. And like one of them, they just drop you down in an open world and they're like, hey, there's these 3 turrets that you need to place charges on, but there's all this other stuff that you can do too. There's these extra SAM turrets. There's all these other alternate mission objectives you can accomplish. And you just can choose what you want to do or you don't want to do in that mission. As long as you accomplish that main objective, which is taking out those 3 turrets, anything else you want to do is totally optional. So that was cool. And then later on, the same thing happens. You get to this place where you're in this big facility and they're like, you need to collect 4 key cards. And so you have to go around and fight basically 4 boss fights to collect the key cards and then take them back to this terminal, insert them, and move on. But within the context of that, there's a bunch of other stuff that you can do. And they have flirted with this. In the last Call of Duty, they had open world sections of the game. They were abysmal compared to what they've done in this game. They feel legitimate, important, and relevant in this game. In last year's game, it felt like this idea that they came up with that they hadn't quite figured out all the details on yet. And they pretty much nail it here. Like, I don't know if it will be all that long before we start to see Call of Duties that the bulk of the game are those types of open world sort of situations. And I'm all for it.
Silk Snake says the bad guys are the Americans for all of us outside the U.S. And that actually brings up something I thought about playing this. Is like the Black Ops games seem to be much more U.S.-centric than the other settings.
Patriotic, you mean?
Well, just in the sense, but also in the sense that they center around the U.S. because the US, if you're doing Cold War shit, it
has to be the
U.S. and Russia,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of wonder if that affects its appeal outside of the U.S. If there's an Irish guy who's just sort of like, I don't really care about playing an American guy in a Cold War. Like, what does that have to do with us?
How does that resonate?
What does that have to do with us, except the fact that whatever this guy's doing might get me killed for no fault of my own.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, I wonder if that is a factor at all.
Yeah. And then even though you have missions where you have some flexibility in how you accomplish them, you actually have to go to the evidence board in the HQ and choose the mission. And in that way, the game is entirely linear. You cannot choose the order of those missions from the board that you want to play. You have to play them exactly as they appear on the board. But otherwise, this game does give you the most flexibility in playing through a Call of Duty campaign that we've ever seen, and that is a step forward, and I think that's probably something that's resonating.
For once, when they tell you, like, you can either go loud or go quiet, they mean it.
Right.
And there's no penalty for one or the other.
Yeah.
Like, you can actually do it one or the other, and they don't really get on your case about it.
Yep. The big gameplay change for this is the omnidirectional movement, and that is in every part of the game. It's not just in the multiplayer. It's in the campaign. It's in zombies, and it's in multiplayer, which is great because it teaches you how to use it.
What is it?
So you can just sprint or dive in any direction.
Okay, I guess
you can dive backwards and land on your back.
I guess I didn't notice that. I just didn't realize it was new.
You don't have to, though. Like, that's the thing. Like, you can play through this whole campaign without ever using it once.
I think I did it by accident.
Yeah.
Like, I think at some point, I'm sure I was running and I stopped and I hit the move button and I ended up on my back.
The last 2 days of multiplayer, I've started using it. Because as I raised up the ranks, it got to the point where I needed to start using it to compete.
Actually, I think the first time I really noticed it was when in the thing you showed where you sniped the guy in the boat. And I laid down for that.
Oh.
I went prone for that. And when I went to go and turn around, he like rolled over and like scooched his way like back, and like you could see your whole body, and he was like scooching back towards the ladder. I'm like, oh no, stand up, dude! What are you doing? Like, I wasn't ready for that. I was a little surprised.
When you first start playing, you'll think that you don't need the multi-direction movement, and you don't. Even in multiplayer, you don't at first. When you're just playing against other people who are level 1 to 10 or whatever. Once you start getting up over level 20 and you start rubbing elbows with people who have played this game entirely too much, then they will murk your ass if you aren't ready for it. They run into a room and they dive every time. They never just run into a room and shoot. And so you have to start learning how to use it. But it is a gradual process where, over time you have to start learning how to use it. And by the time you get to the point where you're level 40 or whatever, where you have to use it, you know how to use it. So I do feel like the game does a really good job of teaching you organically how to use the new movement system. And I do think the new movement system is valuable and important and an upgrade for the Call of Duty franchise. I do not think it is ever going away. The game does have rebounding health, like every Call of Duty. However, this game, like the last couple, has armor plates. They're basically these armor things that you shove into your vest or whatever. And as they wear out, you got to pick up more and more of them. That is the one thing that we recommend that you upgrade in the HQ, your armor plates and your health, because you can get to the point where you can carry like 6 armor plates, and you can install 2 of them with one hand by tapping the button once. Like, all that stuff gets upgraded, and it makes a difference when you're out in the field in these firefights.
This series is going to be chasing that Chernobyl helicopter crash sequence for the rest of its existence.
For the rest of my life, for sure. Then generally, though, I thought the gameplay felt great. I thought the gunplay felt good. Yeah. The auto aim isn't overbearing. It's just about right. They have it tuned very well.
Yeah, they definitely don't have the easy mode snap. I'm sure it looked like you could probably activate that if you wanted in the settings.
Yeah,
but like
default
is pretty freeform without being like, we're not going to help you at all.
Yep. Hit detection and hit boxes are incredible.
Yeah.
I've actually like put it to the test. I have laid down on the ground and tried to shoot through like a car, a fence, and an awning on a building. I found this little window between all those objects to shoot through, and that bullet went through there, man. Like the amount of time that they spend on doing the hit detection and the hitboxes in this franchise is amazing, and in this game, it's absolutely incredible. I was shocked at the geometry that I was shooting through in this game trying to get cover. The other thing that's really cool that I don't know if you noticed or not, and I'll be honest with you, maybe it was in last year's game and I just didn't notice it. I don't know. But in this game, I noticed it because it feels like it's way more heavy-handed. It automatically leans. Did you notice that?
No, I was trying to figure out how to lean.
If you come out of a doorway, it will automatically kick it to the side and lean outside of the doorway. And if you run through an environment, you can see the game leaning as you're running forward, like through the geometry in the game. Again, I don't know if it was in last year's game. All I know is I didn't notice it. So my guess is if it was in last year's game, it's way more prevalent here, which I thought was really cool.
I didn't realize that was happening. I thought I was just stepping out every time I tried to shoot somebody because I was expecting it to lean when I aimed.
It does. If you're aiming down sights and walking at the same time, it will automatically lean around corners and shift your gun to like the side of the screen. And it works great. Like I never thought that it like put me out or put me in a position where I didn't want to do it. I'm like, wow, I don't have to do this manually in this game. I like that because obviously it keeps your body from being a target if you're just leaning out with your shoulders or whatever. And I thought that was very clever and very slick. And again, something that made the game better. Again, I don't know if it was in last year's game. I can't quite remember. Erebus Jones says that leaning weirdly doesn't show up to other characters in multiplayer as a total visual effect. I'm not sure what he means by that.
It means like you don't see the other characters in multiplayer leaning when they do that. It's purely a camera effect.
Oh, so you can't see them doing it, but they are doing it in fact. Interesting. I didn't notice that. Pretty cool that you picked up on that. I did not pick up on it. And then generally, like I played on the normal difficulty. I found the game to have at certain points to have a pretty stiff difficulty at points. Like
there's some kill boxes at times.
Yeah.
I mean, not on the level of like some of the things the old hardened difficulties had. But.
Yeah. One thing I found about Call of Duty, and it's been like this for forever, the campaigns, is there is a very specific path that they want you to take. And if you do that, everything spawns when it's supposed to.
This was better about that than some of the others, but it still happens sometimes.
Like if you try to, the game always tells you to flank. Sometimes flanking in this game is the worst thing that you can do. Seriously, like sometimes you flank, you get out of that pathway, and everything goes haywire.
The actual advice is shoot first.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like,
yeah,
shoot first, shoot the head. That's.
But I also found that like one thing you can do in this game that I've always been able to do in Call of Duty games is run out into a room, alert everybody, run away, have them follow you down a hallway, and then just mow them all down.
GoldenEye.
Yep, it still works in this game after all this time.
And just like GoldenEye, they're not dead till they drop their gun.
Yeah. Yeah, because they'll be like crawling around. Like
I do remember that.
The death animations in this are pretty awesome.
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of variety.
You need to double tap in this game, is what I'm saying. And then graphically, you've been looking at the B-roll. Game's gorgeous. It is still on old platforms.
Yeah, you can tell some like the hands are not quite what they
There's
should
some
be.
giveaways that it's still on PS4 and Xbox One.
Like the hardware is pristine. The characters are still not quite there.
But it looks pretty damn good.
It looks fine. Yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with the visuals in this. There are some, you may have noticed in the B-roll, some of the cinematics have some weird artifacting in them.
Yeah.
Did that happen to you too?
I didn't notice it.
Okay.
But I don't know. No,
I wondered if I just got a weird boot and there was like a problem with it streaming information from my SSD.
I don't remember. Like you're talking about like with the around the hair and stuff.
No, like see if I can find it in the B-roll here. It's like when you first go into the HQ, like that cinematic when you roll into the HQ. There's weird like glitching and artifacting going on.
I thought that was. I think that's intentional.
Right here. There it is. See it?
Oh, that digital. Yeah. I don't remember.
See
that.
it?
Yeah, I don't. That looks like a video file thing. That definitely didn't happen on
This
mine.
was happening during live capture, so I could see it coming through the capture card.
No, that did not happen to me.
Okay. All right, then maybe it was just me. But then this cinematic looks fine. It's really weird. But anyway, I just noticed that
there's digital artifacting there when it flashed that light on.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Mine did not do that.
It may have just been an awkward boot where it just wasn't streaming the information.
Like there are times when it's doing sort of like the weird static like that.
Yeah,
like
see
that
that
did
stuff.
not happen to me. There's sometimes when it does the weird static thing as part of a transition because that's like the style.
Yeah. See it there?
Yeah, no, that didn't happen on mine.
Yeah, and this only happened in this first scene for me as well. This did not continue throughout the game, so it could have just been an anomaly. And then one thing I should mention, the audio in this is absolutely incredible. Incredible. Like, I would just let it sit there and just listen to the sounds of war going on and just listen to the ambient sound. Amazing. The directional audio is incredible. And if it's not good enough for you, which I don't know how that could be, but if it's not, you can pay an extra $20 for spatial audio in this. Did you know that?
No.
Yep. But you don't need to. The default audio is incredible, and you don't need to pay for better audio. So overall, I thought this was, as far as Call of Duty campaigns go, I thought it was pretty great. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would say, like, a lot of people are giving it 9s and 10s. I don't think I could go that far. But mid-8s, like, it's pretty damn good. I was pretty impressed with it.
Yeah, again, it doesn't do a lot for me, but, like, I can tell that, like, they... the last one I played was World War II, which was however many years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, they clearly have not been sitting around and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very different approach than what the last thing I played was.
One thing I will say, and I know you haven't finished it, but I have, and there is still not that one mission where I'm like, it's still in my head. Like, there's no...
I mean, they haven't done that.
It has been a while, yeah.
Let's be honest. The only people to ever do that was Infinity Ward.
Yeah.
The old, the Respawn guys.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. But I remember missions from, like, Black Ops 2 still. In the year's time, I doubt I'll remember hardly any of the missions from this, other than, like, the open world stuff, because it's such a departure.
There is no all gillied up.
Yeah.
Past that. There is no Russian.
Yeah.
There is no, it's...
Yeah. But to Matt's point...
I mean, I love Infinite Warfare, but I couldn't tell you a specific mission that stood out for me.
The Spacewalk mission.
Spacewalk mission is pretty good, but it's like, that's not really... it's more of an experience rather than the actual mission itself. It's like...
But it's still memorable.
It is memorable, but I'm not, all gillied up is like 30 minutes of just...
Right.
Moment
Tension.
after moment after moment after... it's just like, that whole mission is just incredible.
It is, yeah.
And...
there's none of that in this.
They haven't had that since those guys broke off. Whereas, Titanfall 2 is that for 6 hours.
Yeah.
There's a difference there.
Yeah. So anyway, I really enjoyed the campaign. Would I recommend buying it just for the campaign? No. It's $70. I would recommend getting Game Pass for $20 for the month and playing the campaign.
This would have been a thing. You got me a code for this, but like, this would have been a thing I've been glad to have Game Pass for.
Yeah. And I would not regret spending $20 just to play this campaign. To me, it's worth $20.
No, that's probably a good price.
Again, it was like 6-ish hours,
especially
a little bit longer.
Especially if you can figure out how to navigate the fucking install system, so you only have to install the campaign.
Yeah.
Because right now this game is taking up something like 110 gigs of my PS5 hard drive,
which is so much lower than last year's game.
Oh yeah,
they've actually shrunk the size.
It's actually less than Forbidden West.
Yeah, and they have a launcher now, as Matt talked about earlier. And you can install parts if you want. It's Call of Duty now is an app, basically.
Yeah.
And so Modern Warfare 3 and last year's game is in the app with Black Ops 6.
And the campaign is actually 2 parts.
Right.
In terms of what you download.
Yeah.
So you
Two
can
pieces
actually,
to download.
So you can actually have one in the other. So if you get past if you don't have enough space, you could actually install the first part, play that, and then uninstall that and install the second part. So
They're trying.
They're trying. They're doing their best.
Now we got some questions.
I think it was like multiplayer campaign part 1 and part 2, and Warzone are all separate.
Zombies is its own thing
separate
too.
Okay,
yep.
So that's about as good as they can do.
Yeah.
I don't like that you have to be online to play the campaign.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But
it's ridiculous. Zed Saber Juno says sci-fi FPSs are more interesting. Generally, I agree with that. And again, I don't want to spoil anything here, but if you're like that, Zed Saber, you should play this. Again, it's very hard to explain what I'm talking about without spoiling something.
It's not sci-fi, really, but yeah.
It is eventually. It is eventually.
It's a sci-fi way to get to something else.
No, it's sci-fi. You'll see. If you should, or maybe just look it up on YouTube. But it definitely goes sci-fi eventually, for sure. Vincent says, is it worth the GP download for someone who hasn't really cared about Call of Duty at all?
No.
And isn't really into FPSs for that matter?
No.
Probably not. I mean, it is probably going to be the best first-person shooter released this year, so maybe if you just want to check in and see kind of what's going on with the genre, I mean, it's
probably going to be the best kick in the balls you've had all year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that big of a download.
You don't care about the genre, this is not going to change your mind about it.
No. I'm not saying it's like some transcendent thing that's going to change people's minds. Silk Snake says, I have Game Pass. Can't be arsed to try COD. Okay. I've grown up. Okay. Well, we'll just stop right there.
I mean, that's...
Come on, man.
Silk Snake, that's not at all. I mean, you're talking to me here. I'm not a Call of Duty fan by any means. That's not what Call of Duty has ever been.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're
I don't know what you're talking about.
Call of Duty has never been pro-war or yeehaw America. That's never been. I mean, the first.
If anything, it's the opposite.
Yeah, I mean,
it literally makes America look awful.
Like, I guess maybe the World War II ones have some of that to it, but that's just World War II.
Well, I mean, we did kick ass in World War II.
I mean, but it's also yeehaw UK, yeehaw Africa Corps.
See, this is the stereotype about Call of Duty that really bothers me. People who don't play it, they make assumptions about it.
I mean, the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 literally nukes the American character you play. Like, it's not that like that. I cannot imagine. I mean, probably there have been some people dumb enough to, but I can't imagine you play a Call of Duty game and you're like, I'm going to join the army. Like, it's just like, no, it doesn't.
It's the last thing I'd want to do.
It ain't a recruitment tool.
No, definitely not. Anyway, I really enjoyed the campaign.
They used to have military ad tie-ins. That's true.
Military ad tie-ins?
Like military, like the army used to sponsor stuff with Call of Duty and stuff. I do remember.
No,
that.
Call of Duty has the endowment with the military.
Yeah,
they give money to the military.
To yeah.
But that's it.
But like you can see that as kind of like a recruitment tool to some degree, because that's what the only reason the army does anything.
What they're really doing is giving money to war heroes.
But if you actually play, there are no war heroes anymore, I don't think. But like the
ones that they work with are dudes from like Vietnam and like Korean War. Like they even 10 years ago they were working with like 60 and 70-year-olds. Like
I mean those people who deserve to be taken care of for what the country put them through.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Sure. But the
endowment's a good thing. Like I've looked into it hardcore.
But like if you actually play the game, that is not what it is.
Right. Yeah.
So don't talk about shit you don't know about.
And it just like it's not just him. Like I feel like
I mean that's a
the
big
whole
perception.
Industry is like this
sure.
with Call of Duty. Like,
but it's not. It's never
wrong.
been that.
It's
like
just
that.
wrong. Yeah.
Like there's a lot of real criticism still level at Call of Duty.
Absolutely.
100%. But that is not one of them.
Yeah. So anyway, Vincent, if you want to check out like what's the latest FPS, it's the commitment as far as downloading. It's like download it and walk away for 20 minutes. Like it's funny that people look at like downloading something as like
campaign's not huge.
Yeah, it won't take that long. So if you want to check out the latest FPS that everyone's playing,
does it work that way on every platform?
Yeah. I mean, it has the app, and you can choose the parts that you want to download and the ones you don't. Yeah, that's the way it is.
It's pretty simple on PS5, but sometimes
it could get more complicated.
Sometimes you go over to Xbox, and you're like, you want me to do what? You got to go to every individual page and hit download for that?
And they send you to like the Microsoft Store. And,
right. You're like, oh, log in again. Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, that's the campaign. Let's talk about multiplayer. I'm not going to talk about it that long because I was in the beta already. And in fact, all this B-roll is from the beta. I did not go back and record more because here's what I found out, Matt, is that the beta was like the whole freaking game. There's like a few maps that have been revealed since the main game launch, but they pretty much gave up the ghost in the beta. But here's the other thing. They make changes for this stuff. Like a lot of people think like they put the beta out there, they make sure that it doesn't crash, and then that's like it. They made huge changes to this. So much so that I went back and started looking at this B-roll because I could, for the first day and a half that I played this, I could not find a weapon that I thought I could play well with. And so I went back and started looking at the beta footage to see the weapons that I used in the beta, and sure enough, they had changed those weapons so drastically that I could no longer use them and be effective with them in the final retail version of the game. That's insane. So
like they changed them they balanced them, or they
rebalanced them, yeah. And in some cases changed like their firing patterns and things like that. So I don't know if you remember, but in this beta, I had like a 1.6 KD or something ridiculous like that. The first 2 days of playing multiplayer in this, my KD was like 0.7. I was getting annihilated. And then I unlocked the AK. It's a 74 in this for some reason instead of 47.
Well, yeah, because it was made in 74.
Is that what the 47 means? That it was made in that year? I never knew that. I've never known that. Interesting. Again, you learn something every time you watch GameFace.
I mean, the AK-47 is a hell of a gun.
Yeah.
Like it's still, I mean, it's not the best, but it's still very functional for all those years later.
Once I got that weapon, I just started murking. My KD with the AK-74 in this game is 1.4. Not quite as high as it was in the beta, but pretty close. And last year's game, I never barely got over a 1.0 KD. I don't know what it is about Treyarch's games. I have no idea. I even talked to Activision's PR person about this last week. I was like, I don't know why, but my KD in every Black Ops game is like 1.5 or 1.6. In every other Call of Duty, I'm like 1.1, 1.2 if I'm good at that one. For some reason, all Treyarch's games, I just murk. I don't know what it is. It's bizarre. But as soon as I got the AK, I started mopping people up. But again, like, I never even used the AK in the beta. I use like the XMR or whatever, which is just it's like the first assault rifle you get. It's a high fire rate assault rifle with low recoil. But I was just getting schooled using it. And as soon as I got the AK, tables turned, and I was being very competitive. As far as multiplayer is concerned, things that I learned that changed my mind. The one thing that I learned that I changed when I played the final retail version is using the perks. So you have 3 perks that you can choose from, and you have a list of each one of them. And I mentioned this when we talked about it last time, but I never really put it into use. They have categories for the perks, like recon or like assault or whatever. And if you choose 3 perks from the same class, you get a 4th perk that I didn't realize it when I played the beta, but playing the retail version, that 4th perk is a huge deal. So the first one that I got was I chose all 3 recon, and they're blue or whatever. They're all color-coded to help you figure out which ones that you need to match up. And then the extra perk that I got was this thing where every time I respawn, for like 3 seconds, I can see all of the enemies through the geometry of the map. Just for 3 seconds, they're like this red silhouette that they show you. It is a game changer. Knowing where all the enemies are for that 2 seconds every time you spawn changes everything. You can see there's a group of 3 flanking to the left. You can see there's a rogue flanking to the right. You can run to the right and take him on. Like, it made a huge difference. So it's not a frivolous thing choosing your perks in this. If you line them all up, the bonuses that you get with that 4th perk makes a huge, huge difference. The maps, I've seen a lot of people complaining about spawns. And let's be honest, every multiplayer first-person shooter that launches, the spawns are jacked up for the first like week or two. Even if you beta test the living crap out of it, it's still goofy. You're gonna spawn.
I've never seen a shooter launch that people weren't complaining about the spawns.
It's every time.
And even you'll go back and people complain about spawns in games from 20 years ago.
Still,
it's
even though they've been,
it's a pretty standard complaint for people that don't know what they're doing.
No, you're right. But I will say
I will never get used to how many people in these games now are in civvy clothes.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way to I remember when everybody's sides were pretty defined by what they were wearing.
Because they want to sell cosmetics.
Right, all the cosmetic shit. Like, so now everybody runs around like they just, like, escaped from a Watch Dogs Legion or something.
Yep, they want to sell cosmetics. They want to sell complete skins of celebrities.
That guy is a Ubisoft character. Like, I
from the Division.
The guy in the yellow hoodie is a Ubisoft character. He's escaped from Ubisoft.
Yeah, it's from the Division too. They're the guys with the flamethrowers or whatever. What was their names?
I don't know.
It's a faction in the game, but I can't remember it. But anyway, that's who that was. But anyway, that's why. They want to be able to sell crap like that that people keep spending money on it. And you're right, it does get weird at times because now in Modern Warfare 3, if you play a match, it's all like celebrities or like the killer from the Scream movie franchise, like or Freddy or Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Man. It's like you get in a match of Modern Warfare 3 now because it's been out for a year and they've put out all the DLC. It's like a celebrity death match now at this point.
Yeah, everyone's doing that.
And
now.
Fortnite's like that, obviously. This game just launched, so they don't have a lot of celebrities.
People have been
yet.
complaining about that with Magic the Gathering.
Yeah,
it's like, and it's like everyone's like, oh, they must be desperate. I'm like, I don't think Call of Duty is desperate.
Yeah,
like I think this just, that's how you build synergy and how you build like awareness. It's like maybe someone who doesn't give a shit about Call of Duty is going to give a shit about Freddy or something.
Yeah. There are a couple.
It must work, or they wouldn't take the time and effort money to do it.
Yeah. There are a couple maps in this where they do need to tweak the spawning. Like there's one map that's really small, and there's like literally a ship hangar between the two teams, and there's big gates that open and close, and that map is really small. And there was a lot of times where I would spawn on that map and immediately get shot in the back, like and I watched the replay, and the guy who shot me watched my character spawn, watched my character appear in front of him, and then he shot me. So they do have a little bit of work to do, but that is very typical with a competitive first-person shooter. The first couple weeks, they got to tweak the spawns until they figure out what it's actually like out in the wild. 3 days of a beta isn't going to solve all that stuff. So they do need to do a little bit of that stuff on the fly once the game launches and they have that critical mass amount of people playing the game. But generally, I really like most of the maps in this. They're all brand new. If you remember, last year's Modern Warfare 3 at launch had 14 maps. They were all old maps from old games that they reworked. This game launched with all brand new maps, and for the most part, I like pretty much all of them. And I also appreciate how they work with some modes better and some modes not as well. But overall, I think the multiplayer in this is pretty damn good. I had a blast with it. There's enough maps. There's enough variety. There's still, I mean, if you want to get into vehicles, you're still not going to find it in the 6-on-6 mode. You have to go to the bigger stuff. You have to go to Warzone and stuff like that to enjoy that stuff.
I just love everybody in the gray hoodies and the jeans. It's like war broke out on their day off.
Well, one thing I
just got up. We got to go.
One thing I did notice playing this multiplayer is a lot of times, like, people will band together and they all have the same
clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's handy. At least I know who the bad guys are.
Yeah. But that's just a choice that they're making, you know,
Yeah.
that they all pick the same character model or whatever.
Helpful.
Yeah. But I enjoyed the multiplayer in this a lot. I'm already level 27 or something like that, and I've played it a lot. And I still want to play more. And I'm excited to go home tonight and play some more. So if you want to play with me, I am at Dinfire. Add me and I will add you, and we will murk some fools in Call of Duty Black Ops 6. But the other thing I would say, too, is I was really surprised at how much content they did give up for the betas this year. Like, I was disappointed that there weren't more new maps that I hadn't played already. But on the other side of the coin, I was able to hit the ground running pretty well and be competitive right away because I knew at least the rough layout of most of the maps. And anyone who
What goes into that decision, do you think?
Into what decision?
About how much to give you in the beta?
I think probably how many issues they've been having during internal testing with particular things. They're like, oh, this one part of this map, we're not getting the flow that we want. Like the choke points are off. We need to maybe tune it a little bit or create some kind of a deterrent to make people go one direction versus the other. It is kind of funny. I notice when I play games, it's like when I spawn, I go the same direction every time I spawn from a spawn point. And I think maybe that's what they're looking at. They're like, this map is teaching the player to go this direction every time. And maybe for the sake of competitive nature, we need to make sure that the players go this way. And so maybe they put like a new wall in or some kind of a deterrent, a mental deterrent to convince you to go the other direction. It's all stuff like that, basically. But they kind of unloaded both barrels in the beta. And so if you spend a lot of time in the beta, you can pretty much hit the ground running in the multiplayer for Call of Duty Black Ops 6. But I realize that this is why most people buy Call of Duty is for the multiplayer. Because if you spend $70 on it, you want to be able to play multiplayer for the next 10 months or however long you play, depending on how much you enjoy it. And I think that this is definitely something that delivers. And if you buy it for the multiplayer, I think you're going to enjoy it. The loadouts, each gun is different as far as the attachments that you can attach to it. Like the 8K, you can only attach 5. But then later on, you can get like a wild card that lets you attach 3 more to it. It is more of a gun-by-gun basis as far as like what you can attach to guns this time, instead of just saying this is a pick 10 system like it used to be, where every gun you could attach 10 things to it. It didn't matter what the gun is. It is on a gun-by-gun basis, and I think that does help kind of build a relationship with the guns that you use in the game and ingratiates you to some of the guns. I love the AK-74 now. It's a great match for how I like to play Call of Duty. It kills people when they should be killed. A lot of SMGs in this game, I like stop before I finish the clip because I'm like, oh, you should be dead, but you're not. So I feel like the time to kill in this is really good. That was one thing. In the beta, it was way shorter time to kill. They have extended that definitely in the final version of the game, and I hope that they keep it that way. So it's not you're just getting hit with a couple bullets and getting dropped every time. You do have a chance to kind of dodge and get out of the way and try to survive with the rebounding health meter in a lot of ways. So I'm having a ton of fun with the multiplayer in this. If this is what you buy Call of Duty for, I think you can pick it up confidently and ultimately be happy with the multiplayer suite that's going to keep you busy for many, many months to come. And then finally, we're going to talk about zombies. Now, I'm surprised you didn't give zombies at least a little bit of a go.
I've never liked their zombie mode.
Yeah.
I just find it
Well, theirs is the
annoying.
original, the OG zombies, which is round-based, which people were pissed off because the last couple, they weren't round-based. They were like this open world, like kind of like superfluous, like flowing thing where stuff could just happen. And like the good thing about this is it's round-based, meaning that like, okay, here's the first round of zombies. You fight through it. Then it stops. You get a little bit of a reprieve while you go get weapons and get new ammo, and then round 2 starts, and it just keeps going and going. They also give you latitude because it is in an open world. And let me get the B-roll running here so you can see what I'm talking about. It's still in an open world like last year's Zombies mode, but it's more structured. So you, like I said, it's round by round. So you have this measuring stick constantly letting you know how far you've got, knowing that you're doing better this time versus the last time. But the problem with the round-based zombies mode is that it goes on forever. I got to a couple rounds where I was in like round 25, round 24, and I looked at the clock. It was like an hour and a half to get to that. And I just quit. I was like, I'm tired of this. Because what happens is you get to the later rounds and you die like every 10 seconds. Because a single zombie, if he hits you squarely, can kill you. And now as you go, you're upgrading your armor, you're upgrading your weapons and things like that. You're supposed to be able to withstand it. I could not. I found that towards the end of the rounds, I felt so bad that my teammates were having to revive me so often that I just quit. And bailed on getting all the rewards that you get, the bonus rewards you get if you actually stick it out until the end. But it was fun while it lasted. And the cool thing about it is it's set in an open world, but there's all this stuff that just happens organically out in the open world. There's all these events that happen that there's these things that plop down on the ground and it becomes a horde mode. It attracts all the zombies and they're trying to destroy it, and you have to kill the zombies before they can destroy the point. And that stuff just pops up out of nowhere, basically. So it's kind of this emergent thing now for zombies, where you have the structure, it's round by round, you have to kill X number of zombies before the round moves on, but there's still all this other crazy random stuff that is happening out in the open world at the same time. And I think that is kind of the best of both worlds. So right now there's just 2 maps. There's Liberty Falls and Terminus. Liberty Falls, the central point of that map is a bowling alley. And you can go into the bowling alley and you can bowl. There are crazy Easter eggs in this. I've only begun to scratch the surface. And you got to play with other people who are higher level than you with the mic on. And they'll start telling you. For example, the very first match I played, this guy saw that I was level whatever. And he's like, hey, just follow me around. I'll show you the ropes or whatever. And what he did was he went around the map and he found all the parts of this super weapon. And he collected them all, and once he collected them, the VO came on and says, you've collected all the parts. Assemble the super weapon. And he assembles this insane rocket launcher that's the size of a car that literally just wipes out 50 zombies per blast or whatever. And the whole game is loaded with stuff like that, the whole mode. There's just all these little things that you can do, these special conditions that you can satisfy that will give you a new weapon or give you new armor or a new perk. I have no idea what these guys are doing here. I don't know why they're knifing the vending machine. I don't know. The match just
They're hungry.
But that's how this game is. If you follow people around, you will start discovering random stuff that triggers things in the map. And when you first start, the map is closed off, and as you kill more zombies and you get to more rounds, those blue laser things will go down to let you into further parts of the map. Eventually, you have the whole map opened up, and that's when the really crazy stuff starts happening. The big bosses start spawning, and there is a little bit of bullet sponge to this eventually. The zombies, as long as you're upgrading your weapons as you're supposed to with the points that you're earning, the zombies aren't so bad. The bosses start turning into huge bullet sponges where you empty a whole clip and you can't see any of their health bar go down. And that's when you start dying every 10 seconds because one blast from that enemy will kill you, and some of the zombies become so deadly eventually that they start killing you in a swipe or two as well. And that's when I started becoming a burden on the players who were higher level than me, and I started feeling guilty about it, and I just quit. So, again, though, it's a lot like last week I was talking about Super Mario Party Jamboree, about how it was a 2-hour commitment to play the game, and I just was that's too much. I also feel like zombies is a little bit too much of a commitment here. I hated before how I could only play it for 10 minutes before I die and get washed out. In this, it goes on too far. So they need to try to find a happy medium. To me, Matt, 30 minutes for a zombies match is max. I don't know how much further you would want to commit, but
I mean, that's about the limit. I mean, make me feel like I've completed something and do something. I don't know. Maybe more maps with less bloat, I guess. Different objectives and different maps, so you can play a 30-minute thing. I don't know. I understand what they're going for here, but yeah, an hour and a half of just sort of endless zombie stuff it does seem. I mean, I used to do that on the old ones too, where eventually I'd just be I'm done. I'm gonna quit.
Yeah,
I was just over it.
The other thing I would say too is that you open up the whole map in 20 or 25 minutes. And when the map opens up, you're oh my god, this thing's gigantic. How will I ever discover? And you discover it because you're going to be playing on that map for the next 90 minutes. And eventually, the map almost starts to feel small because it goes on for so long. So I don't know what they can do to tweak that. I'm sure people who love the zombies mode and just full disclosure here, I've never been a gigantic zombies fan. Like, it's never been something that I immediately go to and play. It's always been something that, like, I play for, like, a few hours so I could talk about it on whatever podcast I'm on at the time. It's never been a big draw for me. And I'm sure people who love zombies, they probably love the fact that the match goes on for, like, 2 hours or whatever, because they love it. They love every minute of it. Personally, it was a little bit too much for me. I just felt like, anything over an hour is ridiculous. 30 minutes to me feels like the sweet spot for playing a zombies match. But with maps this size and all the things that you can do and want to do if you're a big fan of zombies, again, like bowling and stuff like that, like you got to fiddle around with things in the map to figure out like how to trigger all that stuff, or you could just search the internet and they'll tell you how to do it. A lot of the guides for this game are all about like how you trigger and unlock stuff. Like I saw a video on YouTube, like that superhero like standee that you saw in that one room there. There's something that you can do to turn that standee into like a giant that shoots lasers out of its eyes, and you can literally walk around the map and just sizzle zombies with their laser eyes. So again, like the more you play this, the more it does reward it. Maybe you do need to play it for that amount of time to unlock all that stuff. I would be happier if they found a way to truncate the whole process down so that, in 30 minutes you can get something satisfying out of it. But ultimately, I did have fun playing it for a couple hours. Am I going to go back and play it? Probably when they unlock they release a new map, I'll go back and play. But I've already like played through both of the maps in this for several hours and seen every nook and cranny of the map. And so I feel like as someone who's not a big fan of zombies, I'm kind of over it already, to be honest with you. But if you like it, a lot of people are saying it's like the best zombies ever. So take that for what it's worth. A lot of people do feel like this is a compromise between the two different styles. I thought it was still way too far to the one side than being a happy medium. So, but ultimately, it's one of 3 huge parts of Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and it's why it's easy for someone like me to say if you enjoy first-person shooters, that buying Call of Duty Black Ops 6 for $70 is actually a really good deal. As far as the amount of time you're going to get out of it and the play time that you'll get from it, I think it's a great deal. And if you like shooters or you like Call of Duty, I say pick it up. It's up to you whether you decide to go the Game Pass route or buy it outright. Obviously, if you buy it outright, you have it forever. And if you're going to get it on Game Pass and you plan on playing multiplayer, you figure in a couple months at $20 a month, you've paid for Call of Duty. So I feel like if you're going to play multiplayer, you should probably buy the game. Because if you're going to get sucked into it and keep paying $20 a month, and that's the only thing you're playing on Game Pass, in a year's time, you're going to spend way more for Black Ops 6 than you would have if you had just bought the game. If you just want to play the campaign, it's pretty damn good. Even Matt, you enjoyed it at points.
All right, yeah.
And then $20 for a month of Game Pass, perfect. I think that's it's perfect. So I think Call of Duty can work for a lot of people, because before, if you wanted to play the campaign, you had to plunk down the full amount of the game, and now you don't have to. So I do feel like after everything, after all the acquisitions and Modern Warfare 3 going to Game Pass, but not on day one, and now this finally going on Game Pass on day one, and all the verbiage that came from Microsoft over the last year and a half, ultimately, through all of that, I think it has ended up at a good place. If you're a PlayStation fan, you can still buy the game and play it. If you're an Xbox player, you have the choice of buying it outright or getting it on Game Pass. Even if you're a PlayStation owner, you can play the campaign on Game Pass if you just get like a Fire Stick dongle or whatever, and you don't care that much about lag. So I do feel like, Matt, after everything, that it kind of all worked out.
Well, we don't know yet. I don't think fully.
What do you think is the X factor still?
I think
the money side?
No, I think until we see a Call of Duty that's been developed entirely under the Microsoft ownership period, we don't know 100%. Because this clearly began development before they were fully acquired.
That's true. Because you're right. The next game, the actual development of the game could be affected by meddling. And you're right. This one was so far along, they're like, we're just going to let this ride, and we'll put it out on day one and see what happens, and then next year we can kind of readjust for everything. So
like, I guess we'll see what maybe Treyarch's next one looks like.
Yeah. Which they're now saying, the rumors are swirling that the next game is also a Black Ops game.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which has never happened.
Well, from what you're talking about with the twist, like maybe they just want to follow up.
It could be, yeah. And again, there is a big twist in the campaign in this that I'm not going to spoil for you guys, for those of you who actually play it and make it through it. So there you go. That is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It's available for everything but Switch. And I am wondering if next year's Call of Duty will be available for Switch, or at the very least Switch 2. because that was one of the things. They're like, we want to make sure Call of Duty is on Nintendo platforms as well through this whole process.
It kind of depends how well their frame generation works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But with Switch 2, I'm assuming Activision has dev kits for Switch 2 at this point, and if they can run it on PS4...
Yeah, if it runs on PS4, it should run on that.
You would hope.
It runs on PS4 without frame generation.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so my guess is maybe that last-gen version that they keep making will become the Switch 2 version, and maybe they still keep releasing it for PS4 and Xbox One. I don't know. But it is holding it back a little bit. It's stunning at times, but there's times you can tell that they had to make the game work on weaker hardware for sure. So it will be nice to see. It would be nice.
I didn't think the explosions were very impressive.
Yeah.
Like
I'd agree with that.
They're very spark reliant.
I would agree with that.
Which is kind of an older gen effect.
It's got the puff of volumetric smoke and then a lot of the sparks. You're right. It's kind of a cheap way to do it, for sure. So maybe next year they move on, but if they're going to make a Switch 2, I don't think they will either. You leave too much money on the table.
We've talked about the split on that too much. It's like you're talking about alienating half the audience.
I know.
On the PS5.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're still seeing Madden release on last gen. We're still seeing NBA 2K. Pretty much every annual franchise.
I think those franchises, you'll see those on... I think you'll see a PS4 version of whatever Call of Duty launches on PS6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're probably right. Yep. Well, there you go. That is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. There's our review. I say pick it up. You just got to figure out what the right way of picking it up is for you. And, of course, you need to be a fan of first-person shooters. But I think if you satisfy those two things, you'll be very happy. All right. We're about to move on to our next review, which is Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. But before that, here's a word from our sponsor, the Lands of Hyberian.
Welcome to the Lands of Hyberian, an old-school turn-based RPG with a point-and-click adventure vibe. It's under development by Sifter Hussein Stealthy Zaban. He's trying to finish his first ever video game, but he needs your help. The game currently includes around 4 hours of content, complete with 49 achievements, but his goal is to improve what he's already created and add another 2 hours before it's complete. Right now, as part of this special promotion, you can purchase this game for just $1. That goes towards things like trading cards, replacing AI art, voice acting, and the soundtrack. While it's certainly not required, Stealthy is hoping you'll provide as much feedback as possible to make this the first video game truly crafted by the Sifted community. There's work to be done, but Sifted Army, let's band together and try to make the best game possible. It's in Steam Early Access right now, and you can find a link to its product page in the description below, or just search for the Lands of Hyberian on Steam. Let's do this!
That's right, people. Go to Steam and search for The Lands of Hyberian. That's Hyberian for those of you who are listening on podcast services out there. Again, he's looking for help to finish off his game. Some of you guys have jumped in and done it. And again, he wants to give special thanks to user Dyson, who has really been there and helped him work through some of the kinks. But he still needs more help. There's still a lot of work to be done. Go to Steam, search for The Lands of Hyberian, buy the game for $1, and then jump in there and start helping him make a game. If it's something you've been interested in doing, this is your opportunity. Again, search for The Lands of Hyberian on Steam. And now we're going to talk about a game that is what? 13? No, is it 13 years old? Was it 2011 or 2014 when it originally came out?
I want to say I was still at G4.
Yeah. So it's about a decade old, roughly.
Older than that.
Yeah.
I think 2011 might be right.
Yeah, it might be right, actually. So, but here's the thing. Sonic Cross Shadow Generations is not just a remaster or a remake of Sonic Generations, which people liked at the time.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best modern games in the series.
But they've done a lot of work to it. So it is a remaster, remake. They've gussied up the graphics on it, but they've also released a ton of new content for it, which is a whole separate campaign with Shadow. I did not get to play a ton of this. So I played just enough to capture footage of it. I played a couple stages of Sonic, the original game, and then I played a couple stages of the Shadow stages.
Yeah, I played through the second boss of Shadow.
Okay.
Which is more than enough to know what you're doing, really. And I played Generations back in the day. I played a couple stages enough to know it's like, yep, this is the same game with some improvements.
Now, Generations was like wasn't it a mashup of like the best Sonic levels?
No, it was this. It was like, I mean, they're based on old Sonic levels,
right?
Like, but they aren't recreations.
They were like homages or whatever. Okay.
And you could either play as modern Sonic or classic Sonic, and it was a weird kind of crossover between the two where they met each other. And it's didn't really do a lot with it, but it was just one of those like, oh, I guess, okay, sure. Like, Sonic doesn't react too drastically to realizing there's another version of him looking at himself. Like, I guess he's been through some weird shit anyway. But
this is why I'm so shocked that they've managed to make a Sonic movie that is decent and has done really, really well, because the plots in these games have been so stupid.
They're about to do it a third time.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're taking a lot from, the original Shadow stuff. And I gotta say, going through this, because I focus on the Shadow stuff because it's the new stuff.
Yeah.
And
what is there, about an hour of new content there?
Oh no, it's a full game.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Like it's at least I don't know if it's as long as the main Generations, but it's 4 bosses with like 3 to 6 levels to get to each boss, and then an open world thing to run around in, and yeah, it's a full game.
Again, I only played the first couple stages. It looked like it was going to be short, though. I guess not.
I mean, I guess it's probably like, I would say like 7 to 10 hours.
Really?
But
I thought I remembered this whole game being like 4 or 5 hours when it came out.
Maybe burn through it, I guess.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah, I'm not the guy that goes back and tries to get the S rank on every stage.
Now the Shadow level, the Shadows, it's another game.
Wow.
It's a second game.
That's awesome.
Just that it's only Shadow, and
Yeah,
it's all going through his stuff. And there's a lot. I mean, it's Shadow, so you're either on board with that or you're not. There is a lot of 3 edgy 5 me stuff in it, or constantly he's just like there's like characters in it I don't know because I don't keep up with Sonic stuff. I didn't play the Sonic Shadow the Hedgehog game where he had a gun. And
all right, yeah, me either. I was like, I'm drawing the line right there.
And so I guess his bad guys from previous games, which was like weird. And he's like, I'll take you down. Why can't we just fight right now? It's just like, okay, everybody just fucking chill out. Like, it's like a bunch of kids fighting in a parking lot. And like every time you upgrade, it doesn't like just upgrade you with something cool like Sonic. It like Sonic gets a new bracelet or he gets a new shiny thing that lets him jump more or whatever.
Yeah.
And like Shadow uses a gear to break a black mirror, and tendrils of darkness come out, and he goes no, and he like fights his way back against the darkness and learns the new move that lets him escape from the corruption this time. And it's always called like Doom Surf. Or like
it's called like Doom Shackles or some crap.
Doom Kick, and it's just like, all right, guys, it's like the whole game just went shopping at Hot Topic, and this is what we got. But the good news is, if you like the Shadow levels in Sonic Adventure 2, this is just like
it's a whole game of it.
40 of them.
Yeah.
It's like they're huge, and I mean the main one. There's 2 different kinds of levels. There's like levels where you go like through the main levels, and then to get boss keys, you have to go in like what are these little challenge levels, which are sort of like snippets of the bigger levels where you have to do a particular objective, which are usually pretty easy unless you want to get an S rank, and then you're gonna have to work for it. But like the main levels they're gigantic. If you like that sort of big roller coaster set piece thing, like this game does that 4 times a level for like 20 levels. Like it just keeps going every time there's some new weird crazy thing. Shadow has the same boost ability that Sonic does, where you hold the right trigger and he boosts forward faster, but he can also chaos control, which is his famous maneuver, but in this he freezes time for a certain, I think about 7 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. I think you can upgrade it, I think. But basically, there's sections of his levels where you can get through it without it, but it's going to be a lot easier if you just hit Chaos Control and freeze all the platforms and jump through them before you get away. And so that's sort of his main gimmick. And there are levels and there are sections and there are bosses where you have to use that to survive. Like you are expected to use the Chaos Control thing. And it works for the most part. It makes it feel different from Sonic. His stuff tends to be more like space and dark and a little more enemy action and a little more like running
sci-fi,
from things. There's some sci-fi to it, yeah. Like because he starts in space and all. He ends up his white space.
He's running through space stations with tons of like.
Oh yeah, but you get like there's the railroad stations and there's like you're fighting bio monsters and so it's all just a little weirder than Sonic, I guess. Just in a kind of a weird Pulp Fiction sort of way, whereas Sonic's a little more standard platformy, setting wise. But it's just as good, I would say, as like the Sonic levels for the most part.
I struggled to see a big difference between the two.
There isn't really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just how he moves, his chaos control thing, and sort of the theming of the levels is more shadowy, and then the story obviously is him being his dramatic,
Overly dramatic.
over dramatic self. He says that he is the ultimate life form about 20 times in this, which I think is very funny, both because that's always been a ridiculous line, and because I mostly associate that with that Obama meme.
Oh, right.
You remember that when they turned him into Shadow the Hedgehog?
Yeah.
He's collecting this Chaos Emeralds, and he's like, I'm the ultimate life form. And, and I'm like, so I just constantly think of Barack Obama when I'm playing the game.
Earlier with Bill Clinton in Call of Duty.
There's a lot of politics today, thanks to the very political Shadow the Hedgehog. Also, the more and more kind of like revisiting Shadow, because I haven't played, obviously, a game of Shadow in it in forever. Yeah. More and more, I was just like, you know what? Keanu Reeves was the right pick for this voice. That was the right choice for the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
And apparently there's stuff in here with him voicing him.
Oh, really?
But I don't know what it is. I just saw something that said like there's a bonus thing with where Keanu voices him.
Interesting.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
More Keanu Reeves in everyone's life is a good thing.
Generally a good thing, yeah.
But it's good. It's a good a good Sonic game and a good Shadow game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are saying it's the best 3D Sonic ever. Would you go that far?
Maybe. I mean, in terms of sheer content, again, it kind of depends how you feel about Sonic. If Sonic, the best Sonic to you is that Sonic Adventure style roller coaster 3D level, then yeah, this is probably the best Sonic game of all time.
Yeah, there's a lot of autopilot in this too, which I was actually thankful for.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. And you can get real good. I mean, there's people like really doing some hardcore speedrun stuff. Like you can really burn through these levels fast if you learn how like the ins and outs of them. So that's all there too, if that's what you want to do. If you want to go back and just like really master these things, there is space and room and allowance made for that.
I think having the double game is really important too, because a lot of times these 3D Sonic games, it's like you buy them full price, but if you're not interested in like mastering each level, it's like the developer said, it's like, man, we work on these levels for like
forever,
3 months,
and
you go through them in 40 seconds. Like,
and you see them in this, like, there's moments where you're like, oh, it's because it moves so fast. There's things where you're like, oh, I see you. I just missed a thing where if I jumped there, I could have gone probably to a whole separate section.
Yeah.
And there are things to collect. There's like keys to open chests to find, and there's like, you get bonuses if you don't ever get hit, and there's bonuses if you like find the different, there's a lot of different things to find, which is anathema, kind of the antithesis of trying to get through these things really fast. It's cool. But yeah, if you just want to burn through these levels, I'd say Sonic Generations plus Shadow, the Shadow stuff, gives you something about the length of a normal game.
Right. You need double the game with a Sonic game to get what you would normally get from one game. And again, the base game of this is so old. The vast majority of our audience probably never played the game when it came out. So it's pretty much like 2 Sonic games in one.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of our audience was alive in 2011.
Right, but I don't know if they necessarily played this or if they even remember. I didn't remember hardly anything about it, and I played it back when it came out.
I remember this. I thought this game was great.
I did too. I mean, it was one of the better Sonic 3D. It still is one of the better 3D Sonic games.
But if you think like 3D Sonic should be like Sonic Frontiers, this is obviously not that.
Right. Well, this was also wasn't this the first one that was really kind of split down the middle as far as like whether the missions were side-scrolling or going into the screen?
Yeah, they switch back and forth.
Yeah.
And like there's some that do both. There's some that are more side-scrolling. There's some that are more... But Shadows do both. There is no like dedicated side or... Because there's some missions in Generations, as I recall, that some are like pretty much dedicated side-scrollers.
Yes, they are.
And some are dedicated like this. Shadow just switches between the two pretty regularly in each of the missions.
Yeah.
I have not encountered a side-scrolling only Shadow mission so far.
Yeah, I only played the first 2, so yeah, I definitely did not.
No, the first 2 Shadow missions are just like crazy space roller coasters.
They are crazy. They're awesome. But definitely feel a lot of autopilot.
Yeah, because you're on rails and you're running. And there's like multiple ways to like keep yourself on course. But no, his stuff is really fun. It's like there's not a lot of substance here, but it is fun. Like it's like if you want to like just burn through this stuff, it's fun.
It was like going back to what I was saying about like Sonic stories. They're so stupid. Like I still can't believe they made successful movies out of the plots from these games, because they are really, they really are made for like kids.
Yeah, so are the movies. And the movies are fun.
I can tolerate them as an adult. The stories in Sonic games, not so much.
But like they're also like most of these are actually consumed by adults for the most part.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Like the Sonic fandom is a whole separate can of worms.
Yep. It is its own story for sure.
But no, I mean I like the movies so far. I'll probably see the third one.
I liked the first one a good bit. I was able to get through the second one.
I appreciated how fucking bonkers they went.
Yeah.
With it. It's just like I'm not going to say it's a good film, but
Yeah.
it's like the fact that they just went all in on the Sonic
Yeah.
nonsense was pretty great. And now they're going to do Shadow and like the trailer makes it they're bringing in the fucking grandfather and doing all the like I think Keanu Reeves is gonna say he is the ultimate life form at some point on camera. Like, here we go.
Yeah.
Like we're all gonna have to see this one way or the other.
Yeah.
So.
But I'll just put it to this. I didn't get to play a lot of Shadow stuff, but I did play the original game back in the day all the way through. I thought it was one of the best 3D Sonic games I had ever played. If you're telling me the Shadow stuff is up to scratch,
I think it is.
Then
the Shadow actually does have more to do in his like between levels world, the white space, whatever because he's got stuff to puzzles to solve and like there's like things
people to talk to,
doors to open, people to talk to, chests to open for. You usually get art out of just like stuff, but there's like little challenges to do and you get more. I mean, you're mostly unlocking art for the gallery, but like there's things to do and you can solve the challenges to get the boss keys, and every time you do that it changes more of the white space back to like normal and stuff. Like it's good. Like
it is good. Yeah. I mean, it's a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't regret. I didn't get this for free. I don't regret paying for it.
No.
I'm gonna keep playing it and finish it for sure.
Yeah, it's good.
I just didn't have enough time this week, unfortunately, going through all the Call of Duty stuff. But I don't regret paying for this.
No. So I mean, I bought it too. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
I'd be glad just to have a better version of Generations to play. But the Shadow stuff on top, being as high quality as it is great.
I wonder if they're gonna keep doing these remakes.
I don't know what else you'd do this with that would be worth the time.
I know. But I do wonder if they don't want to let go of this old style of 3D Sonic now that they have the open world Frontiers thing.
I mean, probably not. I mean, but look, the fact that they can make all these new Shadow levels and they're just this good means you can just keep going.
I think to me, that's what's most impressive, is that the Sonic team was able to go back and start working on this old style of Sonic and create a bunch of really awesome new levels. That's encouraging, I think.
I mean, I think it helps that, like, like they weren't wrong where they're talking about we have to, that's why the Sonic and Shadow stuff was so limited in the adventure games, is it took so long to make those levels. Maybe it doesn't take so long. Maybe people know how to do it now. Maybe they realize that this is what we need to budget for. This is what we need to be prepared to make because this is what people want out of this franchise.
Do you want to see games like this going forward, or do you want to see Frontiers be the mainline Sonic going forward?
I'd like to see both, really.
I'll be honest, after playing this again, I think I like these games better than Frontiers.
I do like these games better than Frontiers, but I also think the Frontiers formula has potential.
Yeah.
I think, because I think there's moments in Frontiers where you find something and you go through some crazy course through there, and like that's really satisfying.
But there's also a lot of downtime.
There is, but I think there's room to refine.
Yeah.
They need to Assassin's Creed 1 wasn't Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
They need to populate the open world with a little more stuff.
Yeah, it needs to feel less empty, for
Yeah.
sure. But I think they did a good job of making everything have little obstacles and springs and everywhere. I think it just needs more to do.
Yeah.
They did a good job of not making it feel empty in terms of things to like grind on or like loop through and all that. But they need to add more content to it. But I think they will. I think there's potential in that format.
Vincent brings up a good point. The open world hub of Shadow is like a Frontiers level. It is.
Yeah, it does have that puzzle solving element.
Yeah.
To it. Yeah.
Well, you can see it right here, basically.
That's the dark mirror that something calls to me. It's just like it's so cheesy. It's just so silly.
It's Sonic the Hedgehog.
But it's even silly. It's like Sonic is cheesy in a kind of like, hey, we're all Saturday morning weirdo cartoon things, and Shadow's like Shadow seems really embarrassed to be in the same franchise as all those other guys.
Yeah.
They even the beginning of this, they're even just like, come to the birthday party. He's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta go do space stuff or something.
Silk Snake asks about a Sonic Heroes remaster. That's the other good 3D
That's probably
Sonic
the other
game.
Closest you could get. I mean, I like Colors as well. That was more 2D.
Yeah, Colors was pretty good, but you're right. Most of that did seem like it was side-scrolling for the most part. All of them have had like their good parts and their bad parts throughout the years, honestly. It's hard to figure out which one might be next, but I think probably Heroes would be the next on my list.
Probably. I don't really remember that one very well. That wasn't the one with 3 of them.
It was, yeah.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
You
didn't like it?
It wasn't great.
I mean, I don't know if any of these are great, man.
No.
Let's be honest. Like,
Generations is pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, they have great parts to them, but is it generally a great game? I would struggle to say that about 3D Sonic games, but Certainly not the plot. I'll say that much.
No, I don't think anyone's watching these for the plot. It's it is kind of like porn.
Yeah.
And then here he grows wings
Yeah.
out of Venom symbiote or something.
Yeah.
Later he gets the ability to create a manta ray out of symbiote material, and every time you run on water, he just starts surfing on a manta ray made out of venom. It's weird.
Okay.
Oh, here he goes.
There
Getting
it is. Yeah.
corrupted by the... no, I must invent a new move to stop myself from being corrupted by the darkness.
Yeah, this is where he used that move you talked about earlier. What was it called?
Huzzah! That's his lance, his Doom Lance.
Doom Lance, that's what it was. It's Doom something, right? Everything's Doom.
Doom Spears. Yes.
Well, anyway, there you go. That's Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. It's available for PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch, which is weird. It's very rare that like a game is announced for or released for Switch, but isn't also released for PS4 and Xbox One. But this is one of them because you'd be an idiot to leave the Sonic fans on Nintendo platforms out of the party.
Move away from
you
that.
got to, yeah. So that's 2 thumbs up from GameFace for Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. That might be one of the more sleeper hits for the fall season.
Yeah, there's not a lot of buzz about it, but it is.
It sold 1 million in
good.
the first couple days.
Yeah.
So it's already selling pretty well.
It's just kind of in the middle of all the, it's in the middle of Call of Duty and Dragon Age and
Bunch of
all
other big
the
stuff.
things.
But man, people love the Sonic. That's one thing we've discovered with the success of the
people
films.
love the Sonic.
They really do.
That's how they do it.
He resonates with a lot of people. He just does.
The movie's going to do well. I mean, the other two have. I'm sure this one will as well. It's a good Christmas release.
Yeah. There you go. That's Sonic Cross Shadow Generations.
How crazy is it that like Mario just finally got a hit and Sonic's already on his 3rd?
I know.
Like that, you walk around, you see kids in Sonic. I mean,
All my nephews fell in love with Sonic
They all
after
love
that.
Sonic, and you try to tell them, it's like, that character's 35 years old, and they're like, "Whoa."
Yeah, I got my one nephew a really awesome nightlight that like just has Sonic's like running around the ceiling of his bed, and he loves it. My sister's like, he won't go to sleep without the Sonic light. Like, he just won't. So, yeah, the kids love it, man. It's good to see a new generation.
It's nice to see one Sega thing last.
In a new generation, for sure. Yep. Okay, we have one more game.
Other than Crazy Taxi, apparently.
Yeah, it's another one.
Not a game I thought I would see on the news in 2024, but here we are.
Yep. So anyway, we have one more game to review. It is Neva, and you should definitely stick around for that because I think both Matt and I are going to have some interesting things to say about that game. But before that, we have our New York Sneaker Society Sneaker of the Week. What's up, everyone? Shane here, and one thing you may not realize about me is that I am a total sneakerhead. That's right. I've been collecting Nike sneakers since the early 90s. My favorites are Air Max 95 and Air Max 97. Now, one thing that's different about me from your typical sneakerhead is that I actually wear the sneakers. And because of that, they can get dirty. And that is where New York Sneaker Society comes in. Using their advanced shoe cleaning products, I turned an old pair of Nikes that looked like this into this. With their cleaning products, your sneaker life can go from a year to 5 or more. I know that. I have shoes that are like 30 years old that I still wear because I've cleaned them. You can also lower your carbon footprint, by keeping your kicks looking fresh. For my daily drivers, I also appreciate New York Sneaker Society's Refresh Spray to keep them smelling great and staying crisp. Head to nysneakersociety.co/sifted to clean your shoes like a pro at home and get 10% off your order. That's right, that's nysneakersociety.co/sifted for 10% off. So first of all, make sure you use that URL. It's nysneakersociety.co/sifted because you get 15% off, not 10%. So make sure you use that URL specifically. And then I mentioned last week how I had used New York Sneaker Society's products to clean an old wallet that I had, and it looked like brand new. Well, I left it up on the bar in our kitchen, and my wife saw it, and she was like, dude, what happened to that wallet? You've had that thing for like 15 years. It looks brand new. I told her I used their stuff, and then she went and got it out of the bathroom and used it to clean up a pair of her shoes. So now I have converted my wife into using New York Sneaker Society's products. I should also add, by the way, that they sent me a free big kit of their stuff when we started this sponsorship. And I have cleaned probably 6 pairs of shoes, a wallet. My wife has cleaned 2 pairs of shoes, and I still have tons of product left. Like, the quantity that they give you with your order is awesome. I still haven't run out of anything still. Not anything. Not even, like, the cleaner that I use on everything. Because I don't use, like, some of the finishing stuff on everything that I use. Because sometimes I want, like, that matte look with leather. But stuff where I want the shiny look, I've used all those products. I have not run out of anything still. So, again, go to nysneakersociety.co/sifted. Buy it and clean up your shoes, but it literally works great on anything leather that you own. So keep it in mind. It's not just for your shoes, although it definitely works the best on your shoes. Go to nysneakersociety.co/sifted. And one thing we do with this sponsorship is we focus on a smaller game that you guys were paying attention to this week. And once again, it was an easy choice. You guys were all over this game, and I'm very surprised by it. It's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. This is the small game that you guys resonated with this entire week. I'm not exactly sure why.
I will make a prediction here. This is not going to be a small game.
You think it's going to be a big hit?
This is going to be a big hit.
You think so?
Big hit.
You guys are loving it, man. It was far and away the indie game with the most views on Sifted this week, and it was because somebody reviewed it. Mm-hmm. And I think they may have broken embargo.
It was a big preview, but it had a lot of opinion in it. It was technically a preview.
It looked like it
really looks like a review. Because I read it and I thought it was out, so I went to go look to buy it because I am interested in this, and it was like, no, it didn't come out to December. I was like, what the fuck was this thing? And you look at it was a preview. I read, but I really didn't seem like a preview.
Read like it. They liked it.
I liked it a lot,
and you guys liked it too. You guys, it was the most watched indie thing on the site all week. The game actually does come out on the 10th. It is coming to all platforms, and the plot of the game is
November 10th or December 10th?
December 10th.
December 10th.
Yeah, December 10th. And the plot of the game is that Rita goes back in time, thus Rita's Rewind, to try to keep the Power Rangers from ever being established. And that's sort of the plot. But it's your typical beat-em-up cooperative. I think maybe one thing that's making it resonate with people, Matt, is that it's set in the 90s.
Yeah, well, it's the original team.
Right.
That's part of the appeal, I think.
And it is a little bit of an homage to the 90s.
It is. And it's also, I mean, beat-em-ups are having a bit of a renaissance right now. You've got this, you got the Turtles one, you've got Streets of Rage 4 is probably the best Streets of Rage game, which is a hell of a thing to say when Streets of Rage 2 exists. There's like independent, original beat-em-ups popping around, but it's a hot genre right now.
Yeah.
Up and coming.
Yeah.
This is kind of the game that Power Rangers always should have had and never got.
Yeah.
Like, there were beat 'em up games, but they were terrible.
Yeah.
But this is like, oh yeah, you look at this, and you're like, yeah, this is what this always should have been.
Yeah.
Basically giving it basically you're giving it the Scott Pilgrim treatment here.
Yeah.
And
right.
it looks great.
It does. And again, it's coming to everything. It's coming out on December 10th, and it is your New York Sneaker Society Sneaker of the Week for GameFace episode 409. And with that, it's time to get to our final review of this episode. We're going to talk about Neva.
Neva.
Yeah. That's it. Because she says
the name all the time.
Again. When I was playing it, I was like, I got to remember how she pronounces it. It seemed like even she pronounced it different ways.
It varies depending on the intensity of what she said, but it seems to generally be Neva.
Yeah. This is a side-scrolling...
To me, it's just... Michael Caine saying Neva.
This is a side-scrolling 2D hack and slash by the team that made Grease. Mm-hmm. Very similar art style, but very different game. What would you call these animals? I call them a dolph, a deer wolf.
Oh, these are... I mean, they are basically... I'd call them Miyazakis.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. There's a lot of Mononoke and Spirited Away in this game.
The art style and the art and the visuals in this game, incredible. The music, everything about it. The presentation in this, like, if this game doesn't move you, I hate to use the cliche, but you need to check for a pulse. Like, just so many moments where I was like, oh no, oh, awesome, oh my gosh, no way, oh, like, see, this scene, the opening scene of the game, like, it's like, oh, they're gonna break for, like, the whole game is filled with stuff like this, where you're like watching the scene and you're hoping beyond hope that things are gonna turn out the way that you want, and then they do, and then they don't, and it is an emotional roller coaster. But I was pleasantly surprised by how the game plays, honestly. I really thought this was almost gonna be like a walking simulator where you walk from one scene to the next and it just tries to break your heart. It does do that. It does try to break your heart on a regular basis, but it's actually like a very competent hack and slash where eventually it almost becomes like Pikmin, where you're throwing the wolf at your companion, and it latches onto enemies and things and attacks and does things. I will say this though: at first, it felt very monotonous. Because
I don't think it ever gets away from monotonous.
It's because you do fight the same enemies.
It's the same thing over and over. I really burned down on this about halfway through.
Oh, really?
Once I thought winter finished really well because the chapters are all seasons, and so you start in fall, and or is it summer?
I thought it was spring or summer.
I don't know. I think I got to winter and burned out during winter.
Oh, okay.
Because I think
I finished this actually.
I think you start in summer. Yeah, because you start in summer, and then you go to fall, and fall's like the low point. Like fall, bad shit happens in the fall.
In the tone, the game changes with the seasons too. The look of the game, the tone.
When I got to winter, I was like, okay, I feel like you've sort of shown me everything you got.
I would agree with that.
And it was just sort of.
I did have to push to finish. It's not that long. It's only like 4 hours.
It's not, but it is. It's longer than it probably should be.
Yeah.
And Greece was the same.
Yeah. Because they don't evolve the gameplay enough over the course of the game.
No, you are still doing the same 4 things kind of over and over again.
Because it becomes a cooperative puzzle platformer in a lot of ways. You have to figure out how to get the dog companion through the platforms. In most cases, it's easy for you to do it. But it's figuring out how to get the dog through it.
That's kind of the main thing in summer here, and then by fall it's grown up and it's sort of doing its own thing. You get separated from the dog. Sometimes you have to solve things on your own. The main thing that kind of annoyed me about it was the when you get the ability to launch the dog. One of my issues with that is that the aiming on the dog is on the left stick. So you have to point diagonally wherever direction you want to aim it.
I hate games that do that.
Why is, in the name of God, is this not on the right stick?
And you don't need the right stick for it.
The right stick does nothing. So why am I not aiming with that? Because that is the most... I
don't like games that do that. A lot of them do that.
Like there's a boss where you have to run away from the boss and you have to launch the dog at the thing on its forehead to kill it before it basically rends you off a cliff.
Yeah.
And I'm like... The fact that I have to keep turning around to do this is ridiculous. Awkward. Just let me use the right stick to aim it. And that becomes like a pretty integral move for like the second half of the game.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's that hard, but it was just annoying.
It's just annoying. Yeah. Yep.
And the pretty pictures were not enough to keep propelling me through it.
I finished the game, actually. And I'm glad that I did, because the ending is worth getting to. But I would also say that you could probably just go watch it on YouTube and be no worse for the wear. Yeah,
the best parts of this game are presentational,
yes,
not gameplay.
The story, it tugs at the heartstrings hardcore. And watching, so as you saw, it's not a spoiler to say this. It's in the B-roll. It's in the debut trailer for the game.
It's literally the first scene.
Right, it's the first scene of the game. The dog's parent dies. And... throughout the course of the game, it's a pup. As Matt mentioned, it grows up throughout the course of the game and gets bigger. And so maybe you can, without me spoiling something,
Neva. That's Neva.
Yeah, Neva is the dog's name. Yeah, it's the dog's name. And Neva gets bigger and becomes an adult dwarf. You get to the end of the game, and then you can maybe extrapolate what the latter part.
And this dwarf is not on golf.
Yeah. I agree with you that like the control scheme is a little janky and weird for no reason, but I also thought that the boss fights in this were very creative and interesting.
The boss fights are good, yeah.
Yeah.
Not like the real big boss. Not
right.
like the mini boss stuff is kind of irritating.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, I gotta fight this thing. It's usually like one little trick, and it's like like the thing that annoyed me about fighting the guy where you have to launch the dog, and it said that's not a full boss. It's a mini boss. But the actual bosses are really interesting.
Yeah. And I love the art style throughout all the enemies and everything, but the problem is the rank and file enemies, there's like 3 kinds.
Yeah.
That's not exaggerating. There are like 3 enemies that you fight throughout the entire game.
Yeah, and
they don't even change their behaviors.
The black oil shadow things can basically possess living things and corrupt them.
Yeah.
So the interesting enemies are corrupted versions of the other forest creatures.
Right.
But like in the meantime, to fill the space of a video game, you are fighting these sort of random little sort of eco-looking monsters.
They come up from
and
the
they
ground.
really don't change what they are. Like you're burning through those to just get to the interesting parts, basically, and it gets a little tedious.
And some parts of it too are you keeping an eye out for Neva because Neva will get in trouble because you have to leave the dog behind. You platform through a section, but the enemies will still attack the dog. And so part of it is like that micromanaging or multitasking of like you getting through, making sure the dog isn't in danger.
Although that really is
rescuing the dog.
More the beginning. Like once it grows up, it's sort of it's honestly more dangerous than you are.
Yeah, it can handle its own business eventually. Yeah.
And it has this interesting system here where like when you lose health, you get your health back by whacking things with a sword, which is it's a pretty good way to keep you on the offense without like sort of making you try to turtle from things. She doesn't really have any defense. And
there's really no combo. She doesn't have enough combos either. Like her combat just could be a lot more elaborate, and there could be a lot more enemies.
You could mess with a lot. I mean, I would have liked to see some like I don't know some juggles or some because the game's so aerial anyway that like the fact that she only has a 3-hit ground combo and a 3-hit air combo seems very weird. She can ground slam, which is good.
She can do the butt stomp. And that is integral. That really and a lot of when the chips are down, I use the butt stomp. Like if I think I'm getting overwhelmed,
that's a very strong move.
It is. And then she has a double jump and a dash. So basically she can jump twice and then dash. So she can cover huge gaps. Like when you first start playing,
mobility is not an issue. Although there are times when you're trying to outrun stuff, and you're like, "Hey, you could step it up from a light jog."
I think that's intentional, but
a little bit, sort of. But if you see how she's running, just sort of like, just sort of, I don't know, use your arms or something. You're about to die. Like get out there.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is that like this, I don't know that I've played another game like this.
I would 100% know this is by the Grease people if you just gave it to me.
The art style,
but also like just the way the puzzle design is also clearly from the same people.
Yeah.
Like you can tell the verticality of it and sort of open this and that opens this and come over here to do that and then you can go up and get to the thing and now a thing happens and something blooms and I mean it's very much like that. I mean it's really just Grease with a sword in a lot of ways.
The animation in this game is also really good. Like the way everything is animated.
They're taking a lot of inspiration from the Studio Ghibli, but they are doing it justice.
Oh, like
even just the way that when you kill these things, like flowers sprout where they fall. Like there's a lot of stuff happening.
Well, that's a big part of the game is you're purifying this goop. So a lot of times you'll kill like an enemy and it will turn into like flowers or whatever. The aesthetics in this game are really, really great. Like it really affected me in a very powerful way. But you're right. Like the gameplay itself does start to get repetitive rather quickly. But the animations, like they sell the dog, like the relationship between her and Neva, it's all about the animation. How the dog coddles her and cuddles with her and like knows the right time to go up to her and express sympathy. Like just the interaction between her and Neva, that's the game to me. Whether it's emotionally throughout the plot or what's happening in the game or through combat or having to in the early stages of the game defend Neva until later on in the game where Neva's defending you and the tables become turned, and that's where the ending of the game becomes very powerful. And again, I don't want to spoil it. I definitely would, Matt, go watch at least the ending on YouTube because you put in the work, you might as well get the payoff at the end, and there is a payoff. So I really enjoyed this game. It is repetitive. I do wish there was more depth to the combat. I enjoy the symbiotic relationship between her and Neva, and that to me is what really pulled me anyway to the finish line so I could finish this game. But I wish there were more games like this. But then maybe they wouldn't be as special if there were more of them. But I really enjoyed it. And it is available for PC, both PlayStations, Xbox Series, Switch, and Mac. Again, it's called Neva. And it's very arty. If you're not into arty indie games, you're not going to like this game at all. Because that's really what this game has. Like, it looks good. It sounds good. It'll tug at your heartstrings. Its weakest element is the actual playing of it. So I think we can agree on that one at least. But anyway, that's Neva. And again, just before we go, for people who are listening and can't see the upper third, it is for PC, both PlayStations, Xbox Series, Switch, and Mac. Silkshake says, I got to play a demo of this at Comic-Con over the weekend. It's really good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I was pleasantly surprised by it.
He's talking about Power Rangers.
Oh, okay. I did not like Grease, honestly. I like the look of it.
I didn't
enjoy playing it, though.
I remember liking it, but I also remember feeling the same way about halfway through. I'm like, this can stop now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Grease wasn't as pretty as this. It was more imaginative than pretty, I would say.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of this does a lot of the same like floating stuff.
Yeah.
You know, whereas things break apart from the corruption
slowly...
they kind of float in. There's a lot of weird mid-air platforming with things like that.
That stuff is powerful. At least on me it is. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but it's just the way the whole thing fits together.
I appreciate it. It doesn't do a lot for me. It doesn't really do a lot for me.
Yeah.
It makes me want to go watch Princess Mononoke again.
Okay, that's fair. I can get that angle.
Like, I don't have to sit there and get through a bunch of tedious platform puzzles that I already know how to solve, but I just need to make her run faster.
It's been a really good year for indie games.
Slow.
I'm really going to struggle picking my indie game of the year this year.
I'm not.
No, well, I know what yours is. Yeah, and look, that's one of my candidates as well. That's why it's so hard.
But also there's like the hidden flowers you can find.
Oh, right.
There's so many things where I'm just like, oh, I see how to do. Oh, can't go back and do that now. Have to replay the level. Never gonna get that flower now.
Never gonna happen. No. Yeah. Yep. So there you go. That's Neva. Our final review for GameFace 409. And we have one thing to do before we leave, and y'all know what it is. That's right. It's time for... I gotta get the lower third up there. It's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots from a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game before Matt Keil. A couple things before we get going. You can only win once per calendar year, so if you've already won this year, please do not play. The chat goes into slow mode, so you only get to input one chat every 60 seconds, so don't just spam the chat with a bunch of random game titles hoping you'll guess it right. And then the final thing is, and I just forgot it, oh, you must play PC games. So either you need to play PC games or somebody you know needs to play PC games, because if you win this, you get a free PC game. And we don't want to just give that code out and have you sell it. You can, I guess. Or just go out into the ether. We want to make sure these codes are going to a good home where someone will actually play the game. So just those 3 stipulations, and after that, we are good to go. And speaking of which, Matt, are you good to go?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Name that game. Here is the first screenshot. In 3, 2, 1, go. As always, just a ground texture for the first one, and you guys get it on this all the time. And Emperor Dread guesses Body Harvest again, but not this time, brother. But someday it will be. And believe me, every time I go to pick the game for this, I think about Body Harvest.
Chronicles of Riddick.
You got it. That's right.
I knew I recognized that floor.
It's over. Matt already got it, people.
Escape from Butcher Bay.
It is, yep. And
that is a Butcher Bay ass floor.
It is, and I knew it might give it away. This game has a very unique look
because
to it.
It was such an early bump mapping example.
Yep, and I thought it might give it away, but yep, that's exactly what it is. It is Chronicles of Riddick. You have won 3 of the last 4? Is that right?
Or 4 or 5, yeah. Like that.
You are on a run, and you
bad.
hadn't won for like months before that.
Like a year.
Yeah, it's crazy. But he is right. It is Chronicle of Riddick. You're right, though. The bump mapping in that is one of the first ever bump map games, and so it's very iconic. I almost didn't do the ground texture, because I was like, this will give it away to somebody.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it did. Here's image number 2. Here's image number 3. Here's image number 4. And then here's image number 5, where you can see him just out of frame there. And that would have definitely given it away. Well, there you go. Sorry, people. Matt, I have to start making it more difficult for you.
I knew that was... I was like, I know that floor. It just took me that long to, like, retrieve the information.
Yeah. Well, great job, man.
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes, like, well, I know that bush, but I'm never going to figure out what it is.
You are definitely on a run, man. There's no doubt about it. Well, there you go. That's GameFace episode 409. I will make it harder for Matt, because I don't want Matt to win. I want you guys to win. So I should probably take that into consideration a little bit more going forward. Like, what is Matt... Because I kind of figured you might know what that bump mapping was, to be honest with you, Matt. And turns out you did. So anyway, I'll keep that in mind when doing them in the future. I'll make it a little more difficult for Matt going forward. A couple things before we go. We are supported 100% at patreon.com/SIFTD. Head on over there and give us a pledge. Just $4 a month. You get all our content early. You get this show 4 days early. You get Packed or Factor a week early. You get all our other content at least 3 days early. Again, that's just for $4 a month, and for just $2 a month, you get Pactor Factor early, a week early. And then if you don't have money, but you are subscribing to Amazon Prime, you can use Twitch Prime to give us a free $2.50 every month. If you're watching on YouTube, learn how to connect your accounts down below. If you've already connected your accounts, it literally takes 2 or 3 seconds to go to twitch.tv/SIFTD and just click that banner. Go to the drop down, click it, done. And you give us a free $2.50. We'd appreciate it if you could do that. That's what you're hearing me talk about here on the show all the time about Twitch Prime. And then finally, if you aren't an Amazon Prime member and you don't have any money, you can still help us. Just review the show on the podcast service you're listening to it on. Leave a comment on YouTube. Make sure you like it on YouTube. Make sure you ring the bell and you subscribe and all that other stuff. It's a huge help, and it does make a difference. The views for this show are going up on YouTube right now. Thanks to you guys doing that. We really, really appreciate it. And then finally, you guys may have noticed that this week, we finally launched shorts on our YouTube channel. We finally launched some shorts. The first round of shorts we're doing, we're repurposing some of the content that we do in Dossier. And we're basically just saying like, hey, this is why you should buy this game. And we're using some of the stuff that we did in Dossier. So we're just doing it as an experiment. So far, it's gone pretty well. So if you guys could like those and comment on those, that helps as well. I don't even know, honestly, like, do people get notifications when you post a short on YouTube?
I don't know.
'Cause that would be kind of annoying.
I don't think I do.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, if you're subscribed to a channel, like, you're not getting alerts when they post a short.
I don't think I've ever gotten a shorts notification.
Okay, good.
No.
I hope not. Because if they are, I'll figure out how to turn those off. But I just want to let you guys know that we are doing shorts right now. And we started doing them, and we're going to start repurposing content from GameFace and Pactor Factor as well. So far, they seem to be doing pretty well. But we'll see how it goes over time. We're hoping that we get hooked into that algorithm and we start gaining new followers and things like that on YouTube, hoping that that all pays off. If you're seeing the list down below of people, those are the people who pledge $30 or more per month at patreon.com/SIFTD to make sure GameFace keeps happening. Those people down there, they are the ones who are really keeping the lights on, and we appreciate you guys very much. If you can find it in your heart to bump your pledge up to that $30 tier, that would be absolutely incredible, and your name will run in GameFace in perpetuity. Well, at least until you drop your pledge anyway. I think that's it. We'll be back next week. We'll be reviewing Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Is there one other big game coming out for next week?
There's the Red Dead Redemption.
There's a demo of Monster Hunter Wilds that goes up either today or tomorrow, I think. I'll jump on that grenade.
Yeah, you have fun with that.
I thought you might say that. But you don't hate Monster Hunter, right?
I don't hate it. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand why people like it. It's just I can't stand it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad game. It's just not for me.
Dragon Age getting those sky-high review scores, so it'll be interesting to see what Matt and I think of it.
Perfect score from Eurogamer. What the hell?
It got a perfect score?
Like 5. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty
they
awesome.
They don't like anything. Like,
yeah, they don't. But they like that. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the reviews, so I'm pretty excited. I'm actually really excited for it. I'm really excited to play it.
I hope so. I mean, I played Inquisition to replay it to get ready, and in the meantime, to fill the time, I went back to Mass Effect Andromeda.
You're really getting the pump prime.
Because I wanted to really get the I wanted to really kind of refresh myself on the Frostbite BioWare games.
Yeah.
And not tops. I'll tell you that much, but we'll see.
Eth Demon says that the Monster Hunter Wilds demo is today for PS5 and then Friday for all the other platforms. Thanks for letting us know that. JM Rain says, I saw a creator share that they were not giving code to people who were critical at a preview. Have you heard that? I did hear that, actually. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's their code.
It's their code. I mean, if they're front-loading the positive reviews, that's only going to last so long. But I will say, the positive reviews are coming from the major sites. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, it's not like they gave the code to a bunch of nobody fan sites and held it back from IGN and Eurogamer and Polygon and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
They probably found the one guy who was completely off the reservation as far as everybody else is concerned, and they're just like, you know what? We don't need to give you code early.
Yeah, anybody who's screaming about, screaming transphobic shit or screaming about the game went woke, it's just like, bro, have you played these games?
Oh wait, is that what he was doing?
I don't know about that, whatever guy they're talking about, but there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
I don't remember any actual industry previews talking about that. But that one place did comment on Sweet Baby Inc. in it.
No, really?
Said that there's some Sweet Baby Inc. like action in there, which A, they didn't work on this game, and B, that is just feeding into one of the dumbest conspiracy theories ever. Imagine being so dumb and not understanding how anything works to the point that you think a consulting agency gets to dictate how a video game is made. It's like all the people at the consulting agencies are like, I wish.
Yeah.
Like, I wish they listened to us to that degree. It's like there is nothing more ignorable than a consulting agency's report.
Yeah.
Believe me from experience. I can tell you, nobody is beholden to us.
Yeah.
To do anything like that.
Tiny Blip in History says, my YouTube inbox kinda roasting Veilguard. I don't know what that means.
It means like there's I've already gotten served up a bunch of videos about how Veilguard sucks.
Oh, you mean like your algorithm? The algorithm.
The algorithm's throwing up the usual grifter shit about like, oh, this game sucks, and let me tell you what. And they're being a little more subtle about it this time because I think they believe it's going to sell well. Mm-hmm. And so they're torn where it's like they should have been yelling about how Baldur's Gate 3 was woke, but Baldur's Gate 3 became a giant hit, so they had to pivot to be like, oh, it's woke, but it's done well. Well, that's how you should do it. And so now you're going to get Dragon Age, and they're going to like not go all in on that. But I will guarantee you, when this thing comes out on Thursday, it's going to start the discourse with the most obnoxious motherfuckers you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Hopefully you guys are too, and hopefully you're excited to hear what that.
None of it's going to matter.
Yeah,
because it's like it's going to sell fine. People are going to love it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And if I don't like it, it will not be for that. I guarantee you, because for very different reasons. But it really, if you're comparing this favorably to Mass Effect 2, you have my attention at this point, because that's my favorite. But it might be my favorite game. Period.
Yeah, I think it might be.
All
right, well, there you go. That's GameFace 409. We'll be back with Dragon Age next week. We'll be talking about Monster Hunter Wild. You guys can play that as well. Also, do not forget to go and vote. The more of us vote, the more sure I am that good things are going to happen. So go vote. I don't care what you're registered as. Just vote, and good things will end as a result. We'll see you back here next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.